Komaba Ritoku, 35, enjoyed a perfect steak dinner alone in his apartment, embracing his solitary life. He had always valued independence, living on his own terms and choosing solitude over relationships. He avoided compromises with others, spending his money and time freely as he wished, rejecting marriage. One night, he suddenly collapsed and died alone, still surrounded by the quiet of his apartment. Despite dying alone, Komaba Ritoku had no regrets and was content with his carefree, solitary life. Komaba Ritoku met mysterious men claiming to be gods, confronting him about dying alone. The god Hitorigami favored Ritoku's love of solitude and offered to reincarnate him into another world. Ritoku requested skills that would allow him to live independently and enjoy life freely. The gods granted him a healthy body, elemental affinity, swordsmanship, martial arts, and magic tool knowledge. Ritoku accepted these skills, determined to live in the new world on his own terms. Ritoku decided to live his reincarnated life in the same refined, solo lifestyle he valued. As a baby, he realized he had truly reincarnated, surrounded by people who must be his new parents. His parents welcomed him warmly, holding him gently as he adjusted to his new life. Though he was physically a baby, Ritoku retained his 35-year-old consciousness and perspective. His parents misunderstood, thinking he was happy, while Ritoku silently resolved to pursue independence in this new world. Ritoku wished he could have asked the god to skip the infant stage. He struggled silently while his new parents smiled and played with him happily. Ritoku felt stressed, realizing he might be stuck as a baby for a long time. He observed his parents' care, like changing diapers, and became increasingly panicked. Ritoku internally resolved that if he had to rely on help for personal matters, he would rather die. Ritoku panicked as his parents tried to change his diaper and feed him, feeling trapped in infancy. He experienced more stress and realized the infant stage was far more difficult than he expected. 8 years later, Ritoku grew older, living independently and studying in a large library filled with books, now called Lesta Rulin. He worked on magical projects, developing skills he had requested as a god's reincarnation gift. Jaluk Rulin, his second life identity, focused on drawing blueprints for new magic tools, embracing independence and knowledge. Jaluk Rulin observed the fantasy world, filled with magic creatures, bustling towns, and distant castles. He explored the towns, watching people use magic and encountering adventurers and performers along the way. Jaluk noticed magic tools, which resembled household appliances but were far less functional than he envisioned. Recalling the god's explanation, he decided he would create tools himself to live comfortably in this new world. He applied the magic tool craftsman's knowledge skill from the gods, carefully designing tools to simplify daily life. Jaluk Rulin worked in the Rulin household, which specialized in magic tools, with guidance from Hitorigami. He sketched a design for a refrigerator, a box that could preserve food by releasing cold energy. He analyzed how food spoiled in summer, and understood drying and curing were the common preservation methods. Remembering his love for eating, Jaluk prioritized creating tools that improved daily life and food storage. Using a magic circuit, he calculated the cold energy distribution, showing Mira Rulin and his parents the tool's potential. Mira and Lesta Rulin reacted in surprise as Jaluk explained his new tool design. Jaluk considered increasing the efficiency of the magic circuit to preserve ingredients by freezing. He examined using 2 magic stones in series, but realized he needed to review depletion and circuit mechanics first. Lesta praised Jaluk, calling him a genius for his careful planning and technical understanding. Mira Rulin and Lesta were amazed, impressed by Jaluk's innovative approach to improving magic tool performance. Visitors admired Jaluk Rulin's invention, praising his intelligence and predicting commercial success. At just 8 years old, Jaluk carefully planned improvements to the magic circuit to preserve ingredients efficiently. He analyzed potential enhancements, reviewing magic stones, circuit connections, and energy efficiency to optimize performance. Lesta Rulin and Mira praised Jaluk's brilliance, calling him a genius and expressing amazement at his innovation. Jaluk reflected on his lifelong engagement in inventing, focusing on acquiring skills and optimizing designs for future projects. Jaluk focused on his studies and magic tool development, maintaining his refined solo lifestyle. Alto and Ilya Rulin invited him to play, eager to spend time with their older brother. Jaluk tried to resist, explaining that he needed to continue his work on magic tools. Ilya protested, insisting she wanted to play with him, ignoring his dedication to inventing. Alto and Ilya complained about Jaluk always avoiding playtime, highlighting his habitual focus on training and study. Jaluk was interrupted by his siblings, who eagerly invited him to play. Despite his focus on magic tool development, Ilya and Alto expressed excitement, insisting Jaluk join their game and suggesting hide and seek. Jaluk reluctantly agreed, feeling it was his duty as the eldest son to care for them. Playing with them reminded Jaluk of his past life, where he often couldn't pursue his own interests freely. He tried to guide the play carefully while managing his workshop, longing to become a fully fledged magic tool craftsman. Jaluk Rulin prepared for a sparring match at the Imperial Academy, holding his weapon with focus. His opponent charged at him, and the match began with rapid, precise movements. Jaluk dodged and countered, demonstrating impressive agility and reflexes that surprised his opponent. The opponent struggled to react, unable to match Jaluk's speed and tactical skill. Jaluk used his elemental magic to control the battlefield, overwhelming his opponent while maintaining careful control. Students were shocked by Jaluk's ability to use all elements, observing his mastery in amazement. At the dining table, Jaluk declared he had no plans for marriage, preferring independence. His parents and siblings reacted in surprise, misunderstanding his intentions, while he clarified he wasn't romantically interested. Jaluk reflected that his disinterest in marriage persisted from his previous life. He valued solitude, asking for personal space, relying on inner support rather than others for his focus and heart. Ritoku reflected on his previous life, valuing freedom and being untied to anyone as his reason for living. He maintained his independent ways in the new life, refusing to change even after reincarnation. His parents expressed concern that avoiding marriage could affect their fiefdom's inheritance. Jaluk calmly explained the fiefdom must pass to the eldest son, so his choice didn't disrupt tradition. His family accepted his perspective, acknowledging that such a personal phase of independence was natural and understandable. Jaluk's family remarked that with time he might fall in love and find a fiancée. At 28, Jaluk Rulin had not married, living alone in the imperial capital. He prepared food in his kitchen, enjoying the solitude and self-sufficiency he valued. Jaluk had fulfilled his dream of obtaining a magic tool craftsman's license and operating his own workshop. He carefully adjusted his tools, continuing to refine his inventions while maintaining his independent lifestyle. Jaluk examined the refrigerator he recreated, noting it was larger than in his past life and took up more space. Over the years, he developed many inventions, including a hairdryer, fan, and magic burner, which profited the Rulin family greatly. He toasted bread, using his creations to make daily life more convenient. Jaluk prepared a hot sandwich, satisfied with the results of his magic tool development. He considered selling a hot sandwich maker as the next magic tool innovation, continuing his inventive pursuits. Jaluk shielded his eyes from the sunlight as he stepped outside, taking in the open air. He felt completely free, enjoying the independence and the life he had built for himself. His family and household gathered around, a mixture of affection and concern regarding succession and responsibilities. Despite their push for marriage, Jaluk reflected on his long-awaited freedom from societal restraints. Walking through the busy city streets, he maintained composure, balancing family, society, and his independent ambitions. Komaba Ritoku, a 35-year-old bachelor, enjoyed a refined solo lifestyle. Preferring freedom, he avoided compromises, spending money and time as he wished. After dying alone, gods reincarnated him into another world. He requested skills to maintain solitude and received knowledge in magic, combat, and craftsmanship. Reborn as a baby in the Rulin family, he quickly mastered magic tools. Even at 8, he innovated a refrigerator, impressing everyone. As an adult, Jaluk Rulin lived alone, making inventions for convenience. He thrived independently, enjoying freedom, invention, and a fulfilled solo life untouched by marriage or obligations. Jaluk Rulin lifted a piece of grilled meat, savoring its aroma before taking a bite. He enjoyed eating alone, appreciating the simple pleasure of food without distractions. Later he walked through the lively marketplace filled with stalls and townspeople. Vendors called out their fresh fish and marbled meats, tempting him to explore. Remembering his past life, Jaluk embraced his solo lifestyle while purchasing ingredients for himself. After dying alone, Jaluk was invited by a god to a new world. He was reincarnated as the eldest son of the Rulin household, skilled magic tool craftsman. As a child, he earned praise for inventions but avoided pressures of marriage and succession. 28 years later, he walked through the streets of the imperial capital. Now an independent magic tool craftsman, Jaluk fully enjoyed his peaceful and self-directed life. Jaluk Rulin stepped outside, ready to start his day, carrying his work briefcase. He approached his workshop, a large building prepared for the day's tasks. Inside, he paused for a moment, surveying the workspace before beginning. His employees greeted him cheerfully as he prepared for the day's work. Jaluk calmly started his tasks, maintaining his focused, peaceful routine while overseeing operations. Jaluk Rulin's employee encouraged him to smile more while preparing for the day. Jaluk remained serious, focused on his work, ignoring suggestions about popularity. He calmly maintained his routine, uninterested in socializing or seeking attention. He checked on the processing of magic stones, overseeing their careful handling. Jaluk supervised the cutting and evening of irregular stones, ensuring they were usable for crafting. Jaluk Rulin examined raw materials, preparing to assign tasks for the day. Rouge, a female employee, arrived and organized requests for new magic tool production. She handled deliveries and sales, ensuring products reached their customers efficiently. The team discussed the workload, noting the challenges of having limited staff. Jaluk continued supervising the workshop with only 2 employees, maintaining focus on production and quality. Jaluk Rulin reviewed the workshop's delivery and staffing needs, remaining focused on efficiency. Rouge suggested increasing staff, but Jaluk declined, stating he only created magic tools for convenience. His employees expressed concern about workload, but Jaluk remained calm and rational. They worried it might affect personal lives, noting limited social opportunities in the workplace. Jaluk observed quietly, aware that his unsociable, focused approach left little room for romance or extra interactions. Jaluk Rulin listened to his employees, requesting more staff, remaining calm and rational. He explained that a workplace is no place to expect encounters or romance. Rouge suggested marriage has joys, but Jaluk reminded everyone to focus on work first. Rouge described spending time with loved ones and raising children as fulfilling. Jaluk stated he preferred being alone and was not suited for relationships or childcare. Jaluk's employees argued about marriage, noting why he seemed unlikely to marry. Jaluk calmly explained that he was not incapable of marriage, but chose not to. He emphasized that marriage proposals did not interest him, and he remained focused on work. Rouge reflected on his qualities, but Jaluk dismissed the discussion, directing attention back to work. He noted that for some, remaining alone is a personal choice, not a limitation. Rouge suggested ending the workday, and Jaluk agreed to pause his tasks. His employees proposed going out to eat at a new restaurant that served grilled meat. They explained the concept of yakiniku, where thinly sliced meat could be grilled at the table. Rouge and the team discussed the popular BBQ restaurant, confirming it was always crowded. Jaluk considered eating grilled meat, but realized Rouge had other responsibilities and would pass on joining. Rouge explained she could not join Jaluk for dinner because she needed to care for the children. Jaluk concluded that going out with only 2 people was pointless and agreed to leave work. He decided he would go alone, carrying his briefcase and heading out. Jaluk arrived at the restaurant, noticing the lively crowd and the delicious smells around him. He observed the long lines, realizing that arriving at dinner time meant waiting like everyone else. Jaluk arrived at the popular yakiniku restaurant and saw a long line outside. He quietly waited his turn, following the restaurant staff's instructions to line up. The chef apologized for the delay, explaining that new staff were still learning. Jaluk reassured the owner, noting that the restaurant seemed to be thriving and successful. The owner thanked Jaluk, saying his suggestion had helped make the restaurant flourish. Jaluk entered the restaurant, explaining that he only requested things he personally wanted. The staff guided him to his usual seat, ensuring it was available. He prepared at the table while the chef asked what he would like to order. Jaluk requested the usual, calmly adjusting to sit and start grilling. A plate of crimson beef, thick-cut harami, galbi, and a pint of beer was served for him alone. Jaluk placed crimson beef on the grill, emphasizing the restaurant's specialty. He appreciated the age, cutting technique, and seasoning, noting this restaurant surpassed others. As the meat grilled, he prepared to take his first bite. Jaluk enjoyed the meat with beer, smiling at its delicious taste. He reflected that the sense of fulfillment he felt could not have happened with others present. Rouge and Tristan debated which meat to eat, while Jaluk remained calm and observant. Tristan accidentally burned the offal, and Jaluk noted it was not his fault. Jaluk reflected that coming alone allowed him to fully savor the taste. He observed the lively restaurant scene while enjoying his meal peacefully. The staff and other diners were impressed by his focus, following his lead for orders. The chef recognized Jaluk as a longtime regular and benefactor of the restaurant. The restaurant had been struggling, nearly closing until recent improvements. In the imperial capital, competition was fierce, and new stores opened constantly, overwhelming old businesses. The restaurant's finances had been in the red, making survival difficult. One day Jaluk returned, greeted warmly, and continued his patronage that supported the business's revival. Jaluk Rulin noticed the restaurant had fewer customers recently and asked the owner about it. The owner explained the old restaurant struggled to keep up with cuisine diversification. Jaluk considered using the available meat to attract customers with a new approach. He noticed a display with a suggested meat dish illustration and had an idea. Jaluk proposed cutting the meat thin and letting customers grill it themselves. Surprising the owner, Jaluk proposed a new dining style called yakiniku, where customers grilled their own meat. The chef was skeptical, as he had never made customers cook for themselves. Jaluk noted that the restaurant would have likely failed otherwise, so he decided to try this method. He placed thinly sliced meat on the grill to test the concept. The result delighted customers, who enjoyed grilling multiple cuts themselves while experiencing excitement and variety. Customers praised the yakiniku style and lemon salt seasoning, enjoying grilling for themselves. The restaurant owner was astonished by the long lines and booming business. Consecutive days with winding lines and profitability helped the restaurant recover from being in the red. The owner credited Jaluk for the turnaround and growing customer excitement. Despite the success, Jaluk remained alone, reflecting that BBQ was more fun individually for him. Jaluk sat alone while the restaurant staff observed him, noting that people enjoy things differently. The owner explained that Jaluk preferred eating alone and asked the staff not to interfere. Jaluk quietly considered his meal and decided that next he should focus on finding rice to complement it. Jaluk Rulan spent a quiet holiday alone in his noble residence, enjoying peaceful solitude. He pondered new ideas, reviewing his notes and adjusting his glasses while sitting at his desk. Deciding to leave the house, Jaluk looked over the city, planning to explore beyond his familiar surroundings. He arrived at the Adventurers Guild, observing people organizing quests and preparing for monster hunting. Jaluk chose tasks carefully, focusing on collecting herbs and subjugating minor monsters peacefully. Jaluk stood at the Adventurers Guild counter, waiting his turn to select a task. The guild receptionist recognized him and greeted him warmly, ready to assist with his request. He requested a herb collecting quest, handing over the paper with instructions for the task. The receptionist suggested forming a party to gain more experience and money, observing his B rank status. Jaluk politely declined, explaining that forming a team would put him at a disadvantage. Jaluk remembered his teenage days on three-person quests, often struggling to keep up with his companions. During battles, monsters attacked him directly, showing his vulnerability when paired in a team. His teammates struggled to protect him, revealing that he was less effective in cooperative fights. Back at the guild, Jaluk reaffirmed his decision to work solo, refusing to form a party. The receptionist understood his choice, realizing that Jaluk preferred efficiency and independence over high-rank achievements. Jaluk entered the forest, searching for karuku grass and button mushrooms for his herb-collecting quest. He carefully picked the finest mushrooms, examining each one with satisfaction and excitement. Jaluk stored the herbs quickly in his magic bag, an artifact that expanded his carrying capacity. He reviewed other artifacts, noting their powerful effects beyond normal magic tools, like teleportation and invisibility. He understood that many adventurers pursued artifacts for wealth, while he focused on practical use for his tasks. Jaluk placed herbs carefully into his magic bag, still marveling at its mysterious abilities. He became excited, thinking about romance, though it was unrelated to his current quest. Jaluk reflected on artifacts, appreciating their advanced technology and convenience beyond normal magical tools. While collecting mushrooms, a wild boar appeared, threatening his carefully gathered harvest. He readied his weapon, confident he could handle the danger. Despite not having exercised recently, the wild boar charged at Jaluk, its movements fast and aggressive through the grass. Jaluk dodged skillfully, positioning himself to counter the boar's attacks with his sword. The boar's tusks became stuck, and Jaluk calmly noted the advantage he had gained. He stood over the creature, deciding not to harm it unnecessarily while keeping control. After securing valuable materials from the black boar, Jaluk planned to move to a new location for more herbs. Jaluk walked through the forest, noticing movement among the trees and approaching quietly. He admired the flying creatures above the water, appreciating the serene beauty of the landscape. Finding a quiet spot, Jaluk prepared to enjoy the peaceful view alone, away from distractions. He noticed another guest already resting nearby, slightly interrupting his solitude. Jaluk reminded himself that the area wasn't private, accepting that others might appear unexpectedly. Jaluk finished setting up his campsite, securing the tent and organizing his supplies efficiently. He prepared a portable smoker, planning to make a smoked dish from his gathered ingredients. Jaluk carefully arranged the food on plates, slicing and preparing everything for smoking. He lit the smoker, adding wood chips and activating it to begin the cooking process. As smoke filled the air, Jaluk settled in, observing the scenery while waiting for the flavor to develop. Jaluk opened the smoker and revealed the smoked dish, admiring the delicious aroma. He looked at the food eagerly, impressed by how tasty it appeared. Suddenly, two strangers approached, startling Jaluk. as he questioned their identity. One introduced himself as Ether, explaining his presence, while Jaluk silently noted the inconvenience. Jaluk recognized the newcomer as the person from the next tent, bracing for interaction. Ether approached Jaluk's campsite, explaining he followed the smell of the smoked dish. Ether commented on the dish, questioning its taste and observing Jaluk's reaction. Ether eagerly asked to try the food, while Jaluk wondered if he had ever tasted smoked dishes before. Jaluk handed Ether a skewer, letting him choose which piece to eat. Ether noticed a peculiar smell, different from normal smoke, making him curious about the flavor. Ether tried the smoked dish and immediately found it delicious, impressed by the flavor. He asked Jaluk where he got the cheese, amazed at its quality. Jaluk explained it was ordinary cheese from the central market, surprising Ether. Ether was puzzled by how normal ingredients could taste so exceptional. Jaluk clarified that the dish was smoked, enhancing its fragrance and overall flavor subtly. Ether examined the chips used for smoking, curious about their origin and purpose. Jaluk explained he used apple tree chips, allowing Ether to sniff and explore the aroma. Excited, Ether dashed back to his tent to get his plate, eager to try more. Jaluk gave him instructions, ensuring he received a proper portion without overindulging. Ether thanked Jaluk and presented a rare bottle of Cerberus wine as a gift. Ether offered Jaluk a rare sip of Cerberus wine, noting its exclusivity and value. Jaluk accepted the wine graciously, appreciating the thoughtful gesture. He tasted the wine, savoring the flavor and noting its quality against the serene campsite backdrop. Jaluk paired the wine with the smoked dish, finding the combination particularly satisfying. He reflected that he never imagined he would experience such a rare and delicious wine. Jaluk recalled trading his smoked dish with another solo camper in a previous life. He reflected on the spirit of giving and receiving, appreciating the exchange of good food. Jaluk finished his meal, planning to do some fishing afterward while enjoying the peaceful campsite. Back in the city, Jaluk prepared dinner, noticing a carriage in front of his house. He wondered if the carriage had someone from his family or another visitor. Ilya suddenly appeared, calling out, "Big bro," and surprising Jaluk, ending the scene on a cliffhanger. Jaluk returned home, walking through the city streets, unaware of who awaited him. Ilya appeared suddenly, surprising him with her unexpected arrival outside his residence. Jaluk realized the situation was risky, arriving alone, despite the family's carriage nearby. Ilya insisted she had come with the usual carriage, hiding her true intentions. Gilliam, the family butler, stepped forward, revealing himself as an unexpected escort for Jaluk. Ilya confronted Jaluk about arriving alone, predicting he would flee from the family carriage. She insisted repeatedly, waving letters to demand his attendance at the dinner meeting. Jaluk refused, citing his work as a reason to avoid going with them. Ilya grabbed his arm, insisting he would accompany them despite his objections. She explained his parents were concerned, urging him to show his face at the meeting. Gilliam and Ilya pleaded with Jaluk to spare some time for his family's requests. Jaluk reluctantly agreed, asking them to stop calling him young master, showing his irritation. He refused to let Ilya enter his house, insisting he needed time to prepare. Ilya yelled, reminding him they were family, while Jaluk refused to let strangers inside. Ilya banned him from entering, citing his previous destruction of magical tools as the reason. Jaluk argued about being banned, annoyed by the noise and neighbors' complaints. The group rode in a carriage toward the grand mansion, preparing to meet family. Jaluk greeted his father, exchanging polite words after a year apart. He followed his father inside, with Ilya commenting on the unchanged youthful energy of their parents. Jaluk's mother waited in the dining hall, noting that he had arrived late. Ilya reminded Jaluk that he would skip the dinner meeting if she didn't pick him up. Ludwig, Ilya's husband, appeared, surprising Jaluk as he joined the family gathering. Jaluk's father insisted that he attend the family dinner, no matter what. Ludwig explained his background as an alchemist and former colleague, surprising Jaluk further. Jaluk reflected that the dinner meeting was bothersome, remembering Ludwig's earlier complaints at work. Jaluk tried to avoid the topic, while Ludwig teased him about the atmosphere. Ludwig reminded Sarah that she could finally meet her uncle, emphasizing family importance. Sarah, unaware, asked who Jaluk was, as he had been absent for so long. Ilya encouraged Jaluk to introduce himself, urging him to interact with his niece. Sarah curiously asked if her uncle was unmarried, highlighting Jaluk's prolonged single life. Sarah asked Jaluk when he would get married, prompting him to groan in frustration. Jaluk insisted he preferred being alone and had no interest in marriage. Ilya suggested he at least get a lover, but Jaluk refused firmly. His parents reflected that none of the women he met had been suitable. Ilya concluded that Jaluk was every woman's ideal based on looks and status, yet single. Jaluk's mother and Ilya worried over his refusal to marry, puzzled by his behavior. Jaluk wished to leave, while whispers reminded him of his magical achievements. Ilya asked about Alto, explaining he was attending a social event and could not come. Ilya and his mother scolded him, noting he hadn't visited the family for a year. Jaluk accepted Alto's refusal and resolved to attend the party himself, showing responsibility as the older brother. The family gathered to eat, with Sarah eagerly mentioning her empty stomach. Jaluk explained he liked to cook for himself, prompting his mother to ask about his home meals. Ilya teased him, imagining Jaluk grilling expensive meat or making dishes for Strong's sake. Jaluk realized her guesses were accurate, recalling his daily habits of grilling and eating freely. Ilya warned him that unbalanced eating could make him sick, emphasizing the importance of proper meals. Jaluk declared he remained healthy, attributing it to the goddess of solitude's blessing. Despite his claim, whispers reminded him of proper eating and self-care, making him anxious. Sarah asked if she could eat, and Jaluk realized he could use her playful influence. The family toasted to the prosperity of the Lauren family, raising their glasses together. Jaluk decided he wanted fish for dinner, showing a simple enjoyment in the family meal. The family eagerly ate the grilled fish, praising how tasty it looked and tasted. They noted the flavor was different from normal grilled savanna fish, curious about the taste. Sarah enjoyed the fish, despite normally disliking its smell, surprising the adults. Gilliam revealed that the fish was prepared using a special magic tool brought by Jaluk. The tool created smoke from dedicated chips, enriching the flavor and making the dish special. Ludwig and his father asked Jaluk if they could buy the magic tool he invented. Jaluk resisted, knowing it would be troublesome to refuse, though they were excited. He finally agreed, promising to make it and send it to them, relieving the family. The next day, Jaluk felt gloomy, reflecting on the lingering fatigue from previous events. He decided to take a lunch break, acknowledging that his work progress wasn't advancing as planned. Jaluk realized his work wasn't progressing well and decided a change of pace was needed. He walked through the bustling market, observing the lively stalls and people cooking food. He ordered seafood tomato soup from one of the vendors, smiling as he interacted. He paused, looking at various dishes, considering what to try next. Finally, he chose a grilled armored crab skewer, pleased with his selections and the bustling atmosphere. Jaluk admired the grilled crab, noting its enticing smell as he prepared to eat. He took a bite of the crab, enjoying the first taste with satisfaction. The flavors, perfectly seasoned and enhanced by the charcoal aroma, created an astonishing combination. He carefully cleaned the crab, savoring every bite with precision. He noticed the seafood soup portion was large and decided to taste it, completing his meal. Jaluk tasted the seafood tomato soup, overwhelmed by the rich combination of seafood tomatoes and chili. He focused on the large, chunky ingredients. Savoring each bite carefully, he ate slowly, enjoying the flavors with satisfaction, appreciating the effort behind the meal. After finishing the soup, he expressed gratitude, leaving the bowl empty. Jaluk reflected on the meal, noting how tasty and satisfying today's lunch had been. Jaluk received a paper, unexpectedly, regretting letting his guard down, and considered discarding it. Curious, he examined the paper more closely, unsure of its contents. He realized it was an orchestra concert flyer, piquing his interest despite initial skepticism. Jaluk Rulin walked through the ornate hall, feeling the strain in his legs as he kept pace. Catalina struggled with her heels, trying to follow the group, fearing she would be left behind. The orchestra waited on stage, instruments ready, as Jaluk hurried to join them. He found a seat among the audience, appreciating the grandeur of the performance. As the music played, Jaluk reflected on his past life, smiling at the familiar classical melodies. Jaluk watched the violinists closely, noticing how their music felt different up close. He observed the brass players, fascinated by how their instruments seemed fused together. Jaluk studied the complex tubing of the horn, comparing it to a magic circuit. He realized that overlapping and curving magical circuits could replicate the instrument's intricate design. Excited by the idea, Jaluk resolved to experiment immediately before the moment passed. Jaluk Rulin reviewed his progress carefully, satisfied with the cooler's magical circuit layout. A companion cheerfully announced leaving first, while Jaluk acknowledged the work had gone well. Another approached him, suggesting they go eat dinner together, surprising Jaluk unexpectedly. The friend pleaded, saying he was broke and asking Jaluk to treat him. Jaluk frowned, reminding himself he was already paying enough to have the other as an employee. Jaluk listened as his subordinate apologized, claiming he had spent money on a girl's gift. The subordinate begged, pleading to eat with Jaluk for the first time ever. Jaluk hesitated, realizing that as a boss, he should look after his employees. They walked through the quiet streets at night, heading toward a yakiniku restaurant. Jaluk decided to dine alone, surprising his companion, who wondered why he would go by himself. Jaluk walked through the streets with his subordinate, who asked to visit a recommended place. The companion complained, urging Jaluk to hurry because previous visits to artifact shops took too long. They entered artifact shop Aldius, surrounded by shelves filled with magical items and curiosities. Jaluk observed a fearsome cursed artifact, noting how dedicated collectors seemed slightly unhinged. He smiled, thinking he would never tire of visiting this shop despite the high prices. Jaluk listened, as Guan explained why artifacts are expensive, whether useful or seemingly useless. He asked if any new items had arrived since his last visit just 3 days ago. Guan nodded and pointed to something he thought Jaluk might enjoy, piquing his curiosity. Jaluk focused, instructing the shopkeeper to show him the artifact without delay. He examined a small plain cup, noting it was simple, unadorned, yet potentially magical. Guan poured liquid into the cup, creating a frothy, bubbling effect that fascinated Jaluk. Jaluk was amazed, realizing the artifact produced carbonated water and was called the bubble cup. He learned the water came from a rare spring, unavailable for ordinary individuals. Curious, Jaluk asked how much it cost, considering its novelty and potential use. Guan named the price, 30 million solo, and Jaluk immediately agreed to buy it. Jaluk's companion reacted with shock at the 8-digit price of the bubble cup artifact. Jaluk calmly explained its value, describing potential uses like soda-type cocktails, or even opening a bar. Guan encouraged Jaluk to see the artifact's true potential, handing it over without hesitation. Jaluk reflected that making big purchases feels easier without the obligations of a family. He considered the responsibilities of being single. Understanding freedom comes with planning for a future alone. Jaluk closed the briefcase, signaling that the purchase was complete and everything was settled. He decided to go home, while his companion eagerly suggested they go eat immediately. Jaluk reminded him they would use the artifact later, postponing the meal for another time. The companion reflected that even handsome and rich men like Jaluk struggle with commitment. Jaluk admired the bubble cup, noting its excellent condition and clearly magical appearance at night. Jaluk examined bottles on the counter, deciding to make a highball using the bubble cup. He split ice carefully, enjoying the satisfaction of manually preparing it instead of using magic. Jaluk achieved perfectly sized ice cubes, noting this might be the best split he ever made. He poured the soda into the glass, carefully observing the cubes clink and settle inside. As the carbonated water gushed from the cup, Jaluk admired the sparkling magical bubbles excitedly. Jaluk took a sip of his highball, enjoying the perfect blend of soda and ice. He considered which dish would pair best with his drink, carefully planning the meal. Jaluk chose carriage, savoring the hot, flavorful bites with perfect seasoning. He added a squeeze of lemon, enhancing the taste and balancing the flavors. Jaluk continued enjoying the meal, alternating bites and sips, appreciating both food and drink. Jaluk raised the bubble cup excitedly, celebrating the luxury of owning it for 30 million solo. He reflected on his efforts to live a single, independent life and the freedom it brought. Jaluk praised his past self for working hard, earning both the magical artifact and his independence. He resolved to enjoy his drink at home fully, planning to make a spritzer next. Jaluk sang under the starry night sky, savoring the culmination of a satisfying, successful day. Catalina returned home, noting how dark it was, and mentally prepared to focus on her music. She struggled up the stairs in heels, reminding herself she couldn't survive the musical world feeling lonely. Catalina entered her messy room, realizing she needed to clean up before practicing. She reflected on how maids had always handled such chores since she was little, despite tripping and falling. Catalina resolved to try again next time, determined to manage on her own. Catalina collapsed onto the couch, wanting to forget everything and fall asleep, but resisted hunger. She glanced at the dinner, noticing it was spoiled, and decided to skip the meal. Catalina examined the large refrigerator, wishing for more compact, improved appliances for convenience. She wrote requests to the magic tool craftsman, hoping for better, more compact products. Catalina picked up her violin, determined to practice using her soundproof magic tool for concentration. Catalina tried to focus on her violin, but the noisy neighbor distracted her from practice. Frustrated, she dashed across the room, attempting to regain control and discipline over her practice. Catalina yelled, insisting the use of a soundproof magic tool, while Jaluk happily enjoyed his drink nearby. Jaluk Rulin walked through the busy streets, searching for a quiet place to have breakfast. He noticed a small cafe and paused, intrigued by its empty yet inviting interior. Curious, he examined the entrance and realized he had never seen this charming cafe before. He opened the door and stepped inside, preparing to enjoy a peaceful morning. A friendly waiter greeted him, guiding Jaluk to a comfortable seat to start his day. Jaluk Rulan found a quiet corner and examined the menu, deciding on the morning set. He observed the barista preparing the coffee with careful movements, intrigued by the aroma. The smell caught his attention, making him curious about the drink being crafted before him. Jaluk learned that coffee was rare in this world, yet the barista seemed experienced. He tried the coffee, noting its unfamiliar taste, and realizing he had ground and brewed it himself. Jaluk listened as the barista explained that he enjoyed making coffee as a hobby. While running the cafe, Jaluk requested a morning set with coffee, and the barista agreed to prepare it immediately. The barista carefully set up the brewing equipment, ensuring each step was precise. He measured and poured ground coffee into the filter, preparing it for brewing. The water boiled and flowed through the grounds, completing the delicate coffee preparation for Jaluk. The barista completed the brewing process, carefully stopping the siphon and preparing to serve. He poured the freshly brewed coffee into a cup, releasing its rich aroma into the cafe. Jaluk accepted the cup with a smile, appreciating the warm presentation of the coffee. He inhaled the scent, noticing the smooth color and the absence of any sour smell. Jaluk took a sip and found the coffee delicious, complimenting the barista's careful preparation. The barista introduced himself as Rondell, while serving toast alongside the coffee to Jaluk. Jaluk introduced himself as Zilk Lauren, revealing he was the renowned magic tool craftsman. Rondell expressed honor at serving such a skilled artisan, though Jaluk humbly downplayed it. Another familiar butler, Noid, joined, commenting that seeing someone else order coffee was unusual. Impressed, Noid and another customer decided to order the same coffee, joining Jaluk in enjoying the cafe. Jaluk greeted Tristan in the morning, looking cheerful and energetic as he settled in. Tristan noticed Jaluk's good mood, but Jaluk declined to explain the reason immediately. Jaluk shared that he had tried a new drink with the artifact, along with fried chicken, and enjoyed it. Ayamaid handed Jaluk a request letter, explaining it was not unusual for him to act this way. Jaluk examined the letter carefully, learning that Catalina-san was the sender, preparing him for a new task. Catalina arrived, and Jaluk internally groaned at her constant complaints about various matters. Tristan and the maid noted that Catalina had purchased nearly all of Jaluk's products. Jaluk reflected that complaints were just complaints, and he didn't mind how much she bought. He read her written requests, noting they highlighted practical improvements from a woman's perspective. The maid commented that most of Catalina's notes were selfish, yet Jaluk acknowledged their unexpected usefulness. Tristan explained that Catalina's complaints helped make magic tools more compact. Though it was difficult work, Jaluk remained indifferent, claiming he had nothing to do with the complaints, despite the maid's encouragement. He reflected that the true purpose of magic tools was to make his own life easier. Later, musicians completed their practice, and the instructor dismissed them, thanking everyone for their effort. Some members complained about the rehearsal, while others decided to leave early and have dinner together. Eldova approached Catalina after rehearsal, asking if she had a moment to discuss music. Catalina flustered, worried he noticed her mistakes during the practice session. Eldova reminded her that the next concert required an original piece from orchestra members, not just him. He explained that anyone whose music was accepted would perform it at the concert. Catalina eagerly volunteered, promising to complete her composition by the one-week deadline given by Eldova. Eldova noticed Catalina's nervousness and encouraged her to practice daily for the upcoming concert. Catalina determined that she needed to seize this opportunity and not let it go to waste. She resolved to step up and compose a piece that would impress the orchestra. Frustration set in as she struggled to think of any suitable musical composition ideas. Catalina calmed herself, deciding to stay up late and skip dinner to catch up on practice. Catalina focused on playing her violin, trying to create a melody from any notes she could produce. She successfully arranged a piece, but worried it was plagiarized since she copied her neighbor's melody. Reflecting on her music experiences, she realized her neighbor's performances had always been unfamiliar to her ears. Unsure, she decided to create another composition to ensure it was entirely her own work. The next morning, Catalina hurried to the orchestra rehearsal, apologizing for being late, but ready to perform. Eldova reminded Catalina that the composition deadline was today, prompting her to hand in her work immediately. Catalina accidentally dropped some sheets while presenting her music, causing Eldova to notice. Eldova discovered another sheet and questioned its origin, making Catalina nervous. Catalina realized she had mistakenly included the melody she copied from her neighbor. Eldova reviewed both pieces, praising the second composition as elegant, innovative, and marvelous, leaving Catalina relieved. Catalina nervously thanked Eldova while hoping her copied music would not be chosen for performance. She feared her neighbor's melody might be selected despite her own work. Jaluk attended the concert again, appreciating the experience of hearing live music firsthand. Eldova introduced the next performance, announcing it as new music created by the orchestra members. Jaluk observed the audience and musicians, curious to hear the upcoming piece and its impact. Jaluk noticed the new composition reminded him of a song from his previous life, but realized it was different. Catalina's music was well received, impressing the audience and critics alike. Her peers praised her ability to practice and compose simultaneously, recognizing her dedication and skill. Eldova called Catalina over to acknowledge her accomplishment formally. Catalina introduced herself to Marco Montesino, the opera theater manager, marking her official recognition in the music world. Marco Montesino praised Catalina, noting that the theater's success was partly due to her talent. He asked her to compose the next piece of music, expressing confidence in her abilities. Catalina panicked, unsure how to create something surpassing her previous composition. She worried about making music more amazing than before, and felt immense pressure. Catalina resigned to copying and arranging her neighbor's melody again to meet the expectations. Catalina began a routine of listening at the neighbor's wall after practice sessions, hoping to hear music again. She grew frustrated when the singing was absent, finally giving up temporarily but determined to continue. Catalina resolved to take a risk and pursue her music despite the uncertainty. She approached the neighbor's door, trying to encourage them to sing, but something startled her. Catalina was shocked when the door opened unexpectedly, causing her to fall back in surprise. Jaluk appeared, equally startled, as both faced each other in sudden encounter. Jaluk stood at his mansion entrance, surprised by a sound behind the door. He checked the kitchen, but found he had run out of ginger for his cooking. Determined, Jaluk hurried toward the market, knowing it was still open for supplies. As he opened a hallway door, he accidentally knocked into someone lying on the floor. Jaluk discovered a mysterious young lady, her presence leaving him stunned and uncertain. Jaluk confronted the woman standing in front of his door, surprised and tense. He studied her closely, feeling that her face seemed familiar but couldn't place it. The woman demanded he respect her space, while Jaluk crossed his arms, irritated. He stared at her sharply, noticing she had lingered near his door intentionally. Arguments escalated as both stood firm. Jaluk angry and the woman adamant she wasn't stalking. Jaluk questioned the woman about why she was standing in front of his entrance. She quickly apologized and begged him not to report her. Looking worried, Jaluk agreed to listen. Noticing she seemed to have a genuine reason, the woman explained she couldn't enter his room and suggested talking somewhere else. Surprised, Jaluk realized she was his neighbor, connecting the mystery to someone familiar. Jaluk and the woman arrived at a cafe, entering as the staff greeted them. They were shown to any available seat, ready to settle in. The woman admired the cafe, impressed by its cozy and charming atmosphere. She hesitated over the menu while Jaluk observed her slow decision-making. Finally, Jaluk ordered his coffee, and the barista nodded, preparing their drinks. The woman asked about a special item not listed on the cafe menu. Curious, Jaluk explained that the special coffee could be bitter and complex for newcomers. She confidently requested the coffee, claiming she was already accustomed to its taste. Jaluk noticed her refined manners and assumed she came from a wealthy background. While waiting for their drinks, he suggested they introduce themselves properly to get acquainted. Catalina introduced herself as the second daughter of the McClare family and a violinist. Jaluk recognized her from a theater performance, recalling her violin playing. She asked his name, while Jaluk insisted he wasn't stalking her. Jaluk revealed he was Zilk Lauren, a magic tool craftsman in the royal capital. Catalina angrily confronted him about ignoring her requests for improved tools and letters. Jaluk realized Catalina was the persistent complainer who had sent many requests. Both expressed confusion as they tried to separate her complaints from their previous encounters. The barista delivered their coffee, giving Jaluk and Catalina their drinks. Jaluk noted the aroma and encouraged Catalina to enjoy the beverage. Catalina cautiously sipped the coffee, her expression serious as she evaluated the taste. Catalina reacted to the coffee's strong bitterness, surprised it was more intense than expected. Jaluk suggested adding milk to make it easier for her to drink. She poured the milk into her cup, accepting his guidance carefully. The coffee color changed as she tasted it again. Curious about the result, Catalina's expression brightened as she exclaimed that the drink finally tasted good and enjoyable. Catalina enjoyed the coffee, noting she could handle its taste if it remained this good. Jaluk asked about her reason for lingering at his entrance the previous day. Catalina admitted it had nothing to do with making a complaint at his home. Jaluk requested the full story, asking her to explain as concisely as possible. Catalina revealed that she had asked him to arrange music that she had sung, clarifying her actions. Catalina explained she had asked Jaluk to make another music piece after hearing his performance clearly. Jaluk reminded her that she could hear his singing from her room, which she found surprising. Catalina apologized sincerely for frequently positioning herself near his entrance, despite knowing it caused issues. Jaluk said her frequent presence was forgiven since he didn't mind, claiming it made them even. Catalina began to leave, but Jaluk stopped her, signaling he wasn't finished with their discussion yet. Catalina asked about a song that only Jaluk knew, eager to have it entrusted to her. Jaluk refused, uninterested, prompting her to beg for the music insistently. He struggled against her persistence, while Catalina continued to plead for a deal. They agreed to make a deal, and Jaluk prepared to hear her proposal. Catalina offered to provide one song and split 40% of the music profit with Jaluk. Jaluk rejected Catalina's profit proposal, noting he could earn more from his magic tools. He suggested she offer an artifact instead, asking if she had something unique to give. Catalina revealed she possessed a miniature sound garden, surprising Jaluk. She explained it could store and play music whenever desired. Similar to a music player, Jaluk offered extra money to obtain it, impressing Catalina with his willingness to pay generously. Catalina hesitated to give over the miniature sound garden, worried about recording her own music. Jaluk encouraged her to hand it over, hoping she could make a masterpiece herself. They finally reached an agreement, and Catalina handed him the device. Thrilled, he accepted it. Jaluk admired the miniature sound garden, amazed at its functionality. Catalina asked about her previous request letters, but Jaluk admitted he hadn't read them, causing her frustration. Catalina scolded Jaluk to respond properly to customer requests and improve his magic tools. She gave him advice on sending reasonable requests and understanding magic tool mechanics before letters. Jaluk prepared to inspect the miniature sound garden artifact she had given him. He examined the device, noting its buttons resembled a music player from his previous life. Jaluk carefully wiped the artifact, thinking it had been poorly treated by its previous owner. Jaluk decided to test the miniature sound garden, recalling Catalina had taught him how to use it. He selected music by number, feeling nostalgic as the melody played. He increased the volume and discovered the violin music sounded fantastic. Enjoying it immensely, Jaluk planned to listen to all the pieces and later ask a musician to record favorite tracks. Catalina reminded him to use a soundproof magic tool as the music could leak out. Jaluk reflected on the soundproof magic tool, noting it was used for aristocrats' secrets or merchant business. He decided to search for the artifact's secret element, aiming to unlock hidden functions. Jaluk recalled past discoveries with artifacts and how they could have additional unexpected functions. He experimented with pressing multiple buttons, combinations, and double clicks to explore the artifact's features. The artifact announced itself as Selva McClare, unlocking the sixth storage and surprising Jaluk. Jaluk learned the artifact was originally given to Catalina by her grandfather as a birthday gift. He was instructed to keep the record a secret from Catalina and press stop or delete if needed. Jaluk reluctantly followed the instructions, refusing to involve himself further in Catalina's family matters or personal problems. Jaluk finishes a long meeting with a material supplier and notices the sky darkening. He walks with Tristan and Rouge, preparing to send Rouge home while Tristan seems a bit unreliable. Jaluk explains that self-defense artifacts can take the form of accessories, showing how practical they are. Rouge worries that wearing an artifact from another man could make her future husband jealous. Tristan agrees, noting that some of Jaluk's artifacts are extremely valuable, not trivial to use. Jaluk explains that he lends artifacts only for employee safety, while Tristan struggles to understand. Rouge finds Jaluk's protective side charming, while Tristan still cannot grasp his intentions. Jaluk insists Rouge go home safely, and Tristan prepares to return as well under the night sky. Walking outside, Jaluk admires the unusually clear stars, reflecting on their beauty. He realizes that in his former life, city lights prevented him from seeing stars clearly. Jaluk walks down an unfamiliar street, realizing he got lost on an unknown road. He decides to return to the main road but notices a bar called Ice Rock. Entering the bar, he is surprised by its spacious interior and well-arranged furnishings. An elf bartender welcomes Jaluk politely, catching his attention with her calm demeanor. He observes that female elves are often used to attract customers with their beauty. The elf bartender offers Jaluk a drink before he leaves, insisting he doesn't need to pay. Jaluk accepts the offer, understanding the advice to take a drink before making a decision. He requests the bartender to suggest a drink, showing trust in her expertise. The bartender skillfully manipulates ice magic, crafting the drink with precise control over floating crystals. Jaluk is impressed, recognizing the bartender's mastery of ice magic and her ability to control it flawlessly. The bartender expertly shatters ice, showing Jaluk her exceptional magical skills. She combines liquors with ice to make a frozen daiquiri, surprising Jaluk. Jaluk notices her adding a pink liquid, understanding it is syrup for the drink. She uses nectar from a 1000-day flower, a rare and valuable ingredient. Jaluk questions whether she will actually use such an extraordinary ingredient for the cocktail. The bartender uses magic to spin ice and mix the ingredients, astonishing Jaluk. She presents the finished frozen daiquiri, which looks perfect and refreshing. Jaluk inspects the drink, ensuring the flavor and ice consistency are balanced correctly. He notices the ice sand is perfectly combined with the liquor, creating a refreshing taste. After tasting, Jaluk confirms the drink is delicious, impressing him with her magical mixology. Jaluk admires the bartender's cocktail skills, noting that perfection comes from experience and technique. He apologizes for calling the bar a girl's bar, and the bartender laughs, forgiving him. Jaluk requests another drink, showing his satisfaction and enjoyment of the bar's creations. The next morning, Jaluk is in a good mood at home. While preparing ingredients, Tristan asks about his mood, and Jaluk explains he discovered a bar with a skilled bartender. Tristan asks Jaluk what he is making, curious about his latest project. Rouge also wonders, showing interest in Jaluk's activities at home. Jaluk explains he is making magic tools to grind coffee beans, the main ingredient for coffee. He enjoys being able to drink coffee anywhere, so he decided to make his own coffee mill. Tristan and Rouge are surprised, having never heard about coffee beans before. Tristan reacts dramatically as Jaluk makes another magic tool for grinding coffee beans. Jaluk explains, creating different magic tools for fun occasionally will bring joy and profits. Rouge tries to calm Tristan, suggesting it's easier to let Jaluk make whatever he wants. Rouge reassures Tristan that she will distribute Jaluk's creations even if their demand is uncertain. Jaluk completes the coffee mill, offering both manual and automatic functions, impressing both Tristan and Rouge. Jaluk tells Tristan and Rouge he is leaving work early, surprising them both. He explains he only wants to check that the coffee mills are functioning correctly. Jaluk prepares to make coffee immediately, setting up his equipment in a quiet outdoor spot. A familiar face suddenly appears, greeting Jaluk unexpectedly. Jaluk questions if the newcomer has lived in the area, but the visitor denies it playfully. Jaluk announces he is leaving early, prompting Tristan and Rouge to react in surprise. He explains he only wants to ensure the coffee mills are working properly. Setting up outdoors, Jaluk prepares to brew coffee immediately with his new equipment. A familiar man appears, greeting Jaluk, catching him off guard. Rouge and Jaluk question the newcomer's identity, and he introduces himself as Zilk Lauren. Tristan asks about Zilk's acquaintance, and Zilk explains the woman is a client who sometimes assigns tasks to the guild. Zilk clarifies that he instructs Rouge on which materials to acquire, leaving her to handle the rest. Rouge introduces herself as Mariella, also an adventurer, creating an interesting coincidence. Zilk responds calmly to her enthusiasm, showing his usual composed demeanor. Tristan asks what Zilk plans to make today, shifting focus back to his ongoing work. Zilk explains he plans to grind coffee beans using his prototype magic tools. Tristan and Mariella are curious, learning about coffee's slightly bitter taste and deep flavor. Zilk notes this is a good way to test the durability of his magic tools. Tristan and Mariella ask Zilk to make coffee for them as well. Zilk instructs them to bring their cups, while Tristan and Mariella look on, confused. Zilk notices Mariella alone, thinking there's nothing to discuss. While she glances around, Mariella asks Zilk if he and Eth have known each other for a long time. Zilk explains he doesn't know Eth well, this is only their second meeting. Mariella observes Eth's cheerful behavior, contrasting with his usual distant personality. Tristan and Mariella discuss Eth's distant nature, and how Zilk sometimes had to adjust to it. Tristan notices Zilk's open-hearted side, commenting on how he interacts with others. Mariella demands to know the secret to getting closer to Eth, surprising Zilk. Zilk refuses to answer, admitting he isn't good at that kind of thing. Mariella insists, pointing out there must be a secret behind Eth's behavior. Finally, Mariella blushes and admits that she likes Eth, revealing her feelings. Zilk internally sighs, reflecting on being unexpectedly asked to act as a love consultant. Eth confessed her feelings to Jaluk, surprising him during their peaceful afternoon. Jaluk sighed, feeling awkward as he admitted he had no experience giving love advice. When asked if he had a girlfriend, Jaluk quietly revealed that he had none. Eth reacted with shock, amazed that such a talented craftsman remained single. Jaluk calmly suggested introducing her to other adventurer women, avoiding romance for himself. Toshinori faced a persistent aunt who tried to set him up, finding it annoying. Juluk reminded Eth to mind her own business, noting he was still unmarried. While grinding coffee, Juluk reflected that many people, like him and Eth, remain unmarried. He considered that Eth might someday want to marry. Though she had not said so, Juluk advised Eth to maintain appropriate distance if she hoped for a long-term relationship. Juluk explained to Eth that single men value their time and cannot be pressured. He reflected on how being single allowed him to understand Eth's feelings clearly. Eth and others often overreacted with love, tiring those who were not ready. Juluk considered that a future partner should respect boundaries and not demand too much. He concluded that mutual support, distance, and understanding are key in any relationship. A companion noticed the surprising harmony between Juluk and Eth during their quiet afternoon. Eth panicked when the companion revealed a gift, clarifying the misunderstanding about the paper bag. Juluk gratefully accepted the cookies and prepared coffee for everyone to enjoy. They noticed the coffee's aroma, appreciating its fragrant and comforting smell together. The group enjoyed the taste, noting its slight bitterness and agreeing it was proper coffee. Juluk offered more coffee to Eth and the companion, encouraging them to enjoy it freely. Eth and the companion smiled, happy that there was enough coffee for everyone. They prepared the automatic grinded coffee, noting its strong, sour, and refreshing taste. Each person compared flavors, discussing personal preferences between the new and previous coffee. The companion suggested making another batch, while Juluk warned that too much would remain unfinished. A companion asked Juluk to sell coffee beans and tools, though they were still prototypes. Juluk explained that he needed to test durability and grinding quality first. He gave the companion directions to a cafe that serves coffee in exchange for feedback. Toshinori visited the cafe and was welcomed by the barista. Preparing to try his creation, Juluk presented his custom coffee mills, asking the cafe master to test them and give opinions. The cafe master admired Juluk's coffee mill, surprised it was more compact and efficient. He noted that grinding beans by hand was enjoyable, but Juluk's design saved effort without losing taste. The master realized his current mill was inefficient for serving a large group of customers. Juluk allowed the master to examine the interior, explaining the design and sophistication. The master considered the blade material, noting metal could affect the bean's smell over time. Juluk hesitated to ask the cafe master about the material of his coffee mill blade. The master revealed that his mill blade was crafted from silver wolf claws. Juluk worried about using it, unsure if it was acceptable or too delicate. The master offered support, lending his knowledge and strength to help Juluk improve the mill. Grateful, Juluk promised to use the mill and report back his experience making coffee. Juluk introduced his self-invented coffee tool to the cafe, surprising the staff and visitors. A visitor named Noid greeted Juluk warmly and introduced himself. Noid recognized Juluk as Zilk Loren, a renowned magic tool craftsman in the royal capital. The cafe master clarified which coffee mill was magical and which was manual for brewing. The visitor requested coffee ground by Zilk's mill, and Juluk agreed without hesitation. Juluk warned that the coffee taste might differ from what the visitor usually enjoyed. The cafe master agreed to make an extra portion for Noid without hesitation. Juluk observed as the master ground the beans more slowly. Curious about the effect, once brewed, Juluk noticed the coffee tasted completely different, smoother than his own version. He realized coffee flavor varies, depending on bean ripeness, temperature, humidity, and grinding technique. The cafe master proudly stated he wouldn't lose to a beginner, despite being self-taught. Juluk observed that even with increasing coffee popularity, the cafe's customer base would likely remain stable. He asked to try grinding with the new mill, following instructions to keep the button pressed for rotation. The master carefully demonstrated the process, showing how to grind the beans properly. Unexpectedly, the mill vibrated, surprising the master and everyone watching. Juluk explained that the new automatic grinder was harder to adjust than manual grinding. The cafe master apologized for grinding the beans too finely, noting unexpected outcomes can happen. They tasted the coffee and found it slightly weaker in aroma and richness, but still delicious. Juluk and the visitors discussed how their experience with hand-ground coffee made them sensitive to flavor. Curious, Juluk asked the master for his opinion on using the automatic coffee mill. The cafe master explained that high-speed grinding can generate heat, affecting coffee taste and aroma. He suggested interchangeable blades to accommodate different preferences for grinding levels. Juluk thanked the master for his opinion, noting the helpful insights for improving the mills. The visitors praised Zilk's coffee mills, highlighting the automatic speed grinder's ease and excitement. The manual mill's lightweight allowed precise adjustments, giving full control over coffee flavor. A visitor requested to buy Jaluk's coffee tools, noting that his lord loved coffee. Jaluk agreed to sell the finished products and asked for the lord's name. The visitor explained the lord was Count Albert Blend, a powerful noble in the kingdom. Jaluk approved the order and asked for the order form to be sent to his workshop later. Jaluk Rulin quietly observed Tristan working at the workshop, his expression calm as always. Suddenly, a messenger arrived, bursting in with an urgent announcement about a large magic tools order. Jaluk and Tristan leaned forward, astonished, trying to grasp who the order was from. The messenger revealed it was from Count Albert Blend, shocking Jaluk with the prestige of the client. Tristan and the team discussed the honor, realizing the order came from a rising aristocrat of great influence. Jaluk Rulin and his team realized that fulfilling Count Blend's order could sustain their workshop for a year. They celebrated their success, happy to have completed the task despite the unusual client. Tristan explained that he had anticipated Count Blend's order because he observed the Count's interest in a coffee mill. The messenger stressed the importance of understanding the noble's request, emphasizing it was a significant opportunity. The team admired Jaluk and Tristan's insight, impressed by their ability to seize such an unexpected chance. Tristan clarified that he didn't pursue business, but simply responded to the other party's initiative. Jaluk and the team discussed the order's specifics, realizing its importance was the connection with a great nobleman. Excited by the opportunity, Jaluk and the team prepared to craft the coffee mills immediately. Tristan reminded them of the importance of profit-focused magic tools, keeping everyone grounded. Jaluk insisted on giving full effort, determined to use every skill to satisfy the Count's order. 2 weeks later, Jaluk and Tristan completed the coffee mill, exhausted but satisfied. They explained how they tested endurance, customized the burrs, and received final approval for quality. Their companion praised them for finishing the product, highlighting their teamwork and dedication. Tristan delegated the delivery, trusting Jaluk and the team to handle it responsibly. Tristan reiterated that the business originated from the client's initiative, surprising everyone with the unexpected responsibility. The team argued about who should deliver the coffee mills to Count Blend, debating responsibility. Tristan finally agreed to accompany Jaluk, ensuring proper representation for the workshop. They arrived at the grand mansion, marveling at the architecture and scale of the property. The group noted the mansion's elegance, impressed by the prestige of the Blend family. They realized the Count's main villa must be even larger, reinforcing the importance of their visit. Rouge introduced herself to Jaluk as the sales manager from their workshop. Noid, the Blend family's butler, greeted them and offered guidance, bowing politely. He led Jaluk and Rouge into the mansion, showing them to the guest room. Noid explained that Count Albert wished to meet Jaluk to discuss the ordered mills. Rouge attempted to call the Count directly, but Jaluk stopped her, maintaining proper etiquette. Jaluk joked about wanting to greet Count Albert, surprising Rouge with his casual comment. Noid acknowledged their request and asked them to wait briefly in the guest room. They sat quietly, observing the mansion's interior while waiting for the Count's appearance. Rouge scolded Jaluk for nearly rejecting the Count, insisting he take the meeting seriously. Jaluk admitted he had been joking, leaving Rouge surprised and slightly confused by his calm demeanor. Jaluk and Rouge were welcomed into the mansion, taking their seats in the guest room. Jaluk introduced himself and Rouge to Count Albert Blend, formally explaining their roles. The Count expressed admiration for the magic tools and apologized for taking their time. He requested a demonstration of how the coffee-making tools worked in practice. Rouge prepared the equipment while Jaluk assisted, ready to show the Count the workshop's creation. Count Albert asked about Rondel's cafe and shared his personal experiences with its coffee. He explained his expectations for the coffee mill Jaluk created, emphasizing quality and taste. The Count compared the manual and automatic mills, considering pros and cons for large-scale coffee brewing. He mentioned that even Noid couldn't match Rondel's coffee, showing his high standards. The Count joked about learning Rondel's techniques, noting it would take a lifetime to master them. Count Albert suggested sending Jaluk to Rondel's cafe to learn advanced coffee-making techniques. Jaluk explained the concept of a barista, someone specialized in brewing coffee expertly. The Count enthusiastically agreed, expressing his desire to train and hire baristas. Jaluk and the Count confirmed their agreement while Tristan reminded them to stay focused on the tools. Rouge presented the prepared coffee-making tools, emphasizing that their main concern was achieving proper taste. Rouge offered Count Albert the chance to grind the coffee beans himself, demonstrating the tools. The Count enthusiastically tried it, enjoying the experience of manually grinding the beans. He explained he had always wanted to try it since seeing Rondel grind coffee. He was amazed as the beans ground smoothly with the tool's help. The Count compared the prototype to the final version, impressed by the improvements made by Jaluk and Rouge. Rouge offered Count Albert both coffee samples, one from the manual mill, one from the automatic mill. The Count tasted both, appreciating the coffee and the effort of grinding beans himself. He compared the drinks, noticing subtle differences, and contemplating which he preferred. Jaluk and Rouge explained the purpose of the two mills and awaited the Count's feedback. Count Albert praised the work, expressing delight at enjoying quality coffee in his own home. Jaluk and Count Albert shook hands after the coffee demonstration, finalizing their agreement. The Count asked about the pricing of the coffee mills, confirming their accuracy. He noted that the prices were surprisingly low, cheaper than expected for a magic tool. Jaluk explained the pricing reflected his desire to promote coffee culture and reward hard work. The Count and his butler agreed, acknowledging the reasoning and leaving the matter settled. Jaluk announced he was going home early, surprising Rouge and the others. He explained that his recent busy schedule justified giving the team free time as well. Rouge happily thanked him, planning to have dinner with her family, while Tristan preferred more money over free time. Rouge asked Jaluk what he normally does when living alone. Jaluk replied that he enjoys walking around the royal capital to refresh himself. Rouge asked Jaluk if living alone and going to cafes or bars didn't make him feel lonely. He added that doing things alone is what makes the experience better, smiling as he closed the door behind him. Jaluk Rulin walked through the bustling marketplace, observing vendors arranging vegetables in jars. The crowd moved around him as he browsed carefully. He stopped at the seafood section, studying the fish displayed behind the glass. Shoppers passed, but his focus remained on choosing the freshest options. Jaluk considered various seafood, imagining a meal. He pictured a seafood bowl, appreciating the variety and quality of fish available. He weighed his options, thinking about grilled white fish, teriyaki sauce, or a rich seafood soup. Each choice seemed appealing. Calmly, Jaluk decided not to rush. He continued strolling through the market, taking his time to select ingredients carefully for dinner. Jaluk Rulin walked through the crowded market, spotting familiar faces among the crowd. He paused, observing people as they moved around him. He noticed two acquaintances ahead, gesturing and pointing at various stalls. Jaluk watched quietly, considering his next move while staying calm. A vendor shouted about fresh dragon meat arriving. Jaluk's eyes widened slightly, intrigued by the rare offering presented in the bustling market. Jaluk examined the enormous cut of dragon meat, marveling at its size. He analyzed the price and quality, deciding whether to purchase it. Memories surfaced of tasting dragon meat as a child on his birthday. Jaluk remembered the flavor fondly, making the rare purchase a nostalgic choice. Jaluk Rulin remembered the taste of dragon meat from his childhood. Its unique flavor stood out compared to ordinary meats he had eaten. He approached a vendor and asked about the part of the meat. The vendor explained it came from the dragon's tail, very lean. Jaluk compared it to the finger meat he remembered. The vendor confirmed the tail meat was even tastier and more flavorful. He confidently requested 600 grams of dragon meat, pointing to the large cut, ready to make a nostalgic meal for himself. The vendor smiled, noting Jaluk's joy at the purchase. Jaluk thanked him politely, carrying the rare meat with anticipation for cooking. Jaluk decided to eat the dragon meat as a reward for himself. He clarified he was unmarried, planning to enjoy it alone. He paused, holding the meat, while the market crowd watched silently. His companions followed him, curious about his next move. Jaluk asked if eating it alone was inappropriate. The vendor reassured him warmly, smiling, confirming it was perfectly fine. He carried the dragon meat back home, walking through the city streets calmly, anticipating the meal he would prepare. At home, he met a friend, returning from shopping. They exchanged greetings, sharing a moment before he prepared the dragon meat for himself. Jaluk Rulin noticed a friend carrying groceries. She called out, excited about a good offer, catching his attention unexpectedly. He followed her through the hallways, realizing they were heading in the same direction. He walked silently, observing her carefully. Jaluk reflected on their unusual relationship. It was hard to treat her as a stranger, yet he didn't fully engage either. Passing a speaker, he became aware of the broadcast. The words made him uneasy, stirring thoughts he preferred to ignore. He quickly deleted the scandalous recording mentioned, feeling awkward. Jaluk remained cautious, handling the situation carefully while maintaining composure. Jaluk Rulin noticed his friend observing the package he carried. She asked if it contained meat, curious about its contents. He revealed it was dragon meat. Her eyes widened in surprise, clearly impressed and slightly shocked by the rarity. She asked if it was his birthday. Jaluk explained it was neither a celebration for family nor friends, just a personal reward. He told her he had finished a job and bought the meat as a treat for himself. She appeared puzzled by the expensive purchase. Jaluk reminded her that everyone decides their own meals at home. She gave him an awkward look, unsure how to respond. Jaluk walked down the hallway with his friend, carrying the groceries. She asked about the concert, curious about its progress. She explained the new song was a hit, and the concert sold out, making tickets nearly impossible to get. Jaluk commented that this was troublesome. He maintained a calm demeanor as they continued walking together. She offered him a premium seat ticket for the concert. Jaluk looked surprised, appreciating the gesture. He reached for the ticket, noting the expense. He wondered how much he should pay, grateful but cautious about the cost. Jaluk accepted the concert ticket his friend offered. She assured him she could get a seat for free, and he gladly agreed. She asked him to help with the next song. Jaluk smiled and followed her as they headed toward the rehearsal room. Back at home that night, Jaluk prepared the dragon meat he had bought earlier. He carefully placed it on the counter. He announced he would have steak for dinner, looking forward to cooking it perfectly. Jaluk allowed the meat to return to room temperature, preparing to slice it carefully and cook a delicious meal for himself. Jaluk began preparing vegetables for the meal, slicing carrots, broccoli, and asparagus carefully on the cutting board. He seasoned the thick dragon steak with salt and pepper, making sure both sides were evenly coated. Jaluk decided not to use a frying pan this time, opting for the expensive iron plate, known for enhancing flavor. He placed the dragon meat on the heated plate, letting it sizzle and cook slowly to preserve its taste. Jaluk seared the steak on both sides, coating it with umami, while carefully monitoring its progress, preparing for a perfect dinner. Jaluk let the steak cook using residual heat, ensuring it reached the perfect doneness without overcooking. He fed the sliced vegetables in garlic oil and meat juices left over from cooking, enhancing their flavor naturally. Jaluk carefully seared the meat a bit more, checking both steak and vegetables, making sure everything was cooked evenly. He flipped the steaks, allowing both sides to develop a rich sear, and cooked the asparagus with precision. Finally, Jaluk presented the completed meal, dragon steak with vegetables, perfect and ready to enjoy, a satisfying reward for his effort. Jaluk Rulan searched his wine collection, intending to pair red wine with his freshly cooked dragon steak for the perfect meal. He realized his preferred bottle wasn't there. He frowned, remembering he had finished it the day before, disappointed but undeterred. He considered shopping for more wine, but realized it wasn't possible at the moment, so he scanned the shelves carefully for an alternative. Jaluk finally found a bottle, though not his favorite. He examined the label, considering how it would complement the meal. He poured the wine into his ephemeral goblet, contemplating whether to enjoy it as a traditional glass, or as a spritzer rouge, excited for the pairing. Jaluk Rulan finally sat at the table, ready to enjoy his meal. He clasped his hands, announcing it was time to eat. He took the first bite of dragon steak, savoring the flavor. Jaluk noted that finger meat was nothing compared to this rare delicacy. He sipped red wine, appreciating the balance with the meat. The tail meat was lean yet had just enough fat for richness. Jaluk ate vegetables alongside the steak, reflecting that it wasn't anyone's birthday. The meal was simply a personal reward. He reminded himself that there were no rules when enjoying good food. Eating deliciously was a joy to be fully experienced alone. Jaluk Rulan raised his glass of red wine, savoring the moment. He reflected on eating freely whenever he wished. He smiled, realizing the meal melted away the stress of everyday life. Being a single aristocrat allowed such indulgence. Later at home, a visitor arrived unexpectedly, claiming to be a family member. Jaluk looked up, surprised. He reacted in shock, exclaiming in disbelief. The sudden appearance caught him entirely off guard. He questioned whether they came under the guise of another dinner party. His mind raced with concern. The visitor greeted him warmly, urging Jaluk to come home more often. Jaluk tried to process the sudden family visit. Jaluk Rulan was surprised by a sudden visitor at his door. The visitor greeted him cheerfully, calling him by name. Jaluk immediately recognized the man wasn't family. He firmly told him to leave, closing the door without hesitation. The visitor protested loudly from the doorway, waving his arms. Jaluk remained calm, adjusting his clothes and ignoring the outburst. The visitor tried teasing him, calling him brother-in-law. Jaluk's expression hardened, warning that such words could provoke him dangerously. The visitor explained his connection through Ilya, expressing regret for the introduction. Jaluk listened, still cautious, but slightly contemplative. Jaluk and the visitor were startled by a sudden, loud demand. The visitor insisted on being introduced to someone. Jaluk thought for a moment and realized the visitor meant his younger sister. He noted she was a noble woman in her own way. The visitor reacted with shock, explaining no suitable woman could be introduced. Jaluk remained calm, showing no concern for appearances. Jaluk silently observed the visitor's frustration. He seemed indifferent, aware that looks did not guarantee companionship. Jaluk's sister and another noblewoman happily interacted with him. The visitor panicked, realizing women naturally gathered around Jaluk, despite his neutrality. Jaluk sat calmly as women approached him. The visitor noted Jaluk's aloofness, realizing he was cold to any woman seeking attention. Jaluk explained that he enjoyed being alone and considered women who approached him a nuisance. The visitor asked to meet someone. The visitor questioned Jaluk about his workshop employees and subordinates. Jaluk replied matter-of-factly, answering calmly. Jaluk revealed that all the women in his workshop, past and present, were married. The visitor expressed surprise at the speed. The visitor realized the women's alchemy skills made them highly sought after. Jaluk remained composed, while the visitor felt overwhelmed by the situation. Jaluk listened as Rouge explained that special skills and wealth made him appealing. The visitor was shocked by this revelation. The visitor asked if Jaluk would introduce him to someone else. Jaluk replied calmly that he enjoyed being alone. Jaluk's visitor asked about his workshop employees and subordinates. Jaluk responded that all women working there were married. The visitor realized the women's skills made them valuable and in high demand. Jaluk observed the visitor's frustration silently. Jaluk assured the visitor he would finish work quickly. The visitor, still flustered, waited while Jaluk prepared to introduce a suitable person. Jaluk and the visitor walked through the streets at night. The visitor remarked it had been a long time since experiencing such an evening. Jaluk explained that Ilya had told him to return immediately. The visitor felt it inconvenient not being able to go out freely. The visitor expressed nostalgia for casual drinking in the past. Jaluk suggested that marriage had naturally changed his freedom. Jaluk reflected that, when single, one could drink freely without responsibility. The visitor acknowledged the truth, but seemed hesitant. Jaluk described the joys of married life, spending time with his beloved Ilya and lovely Sarah, appreciating both freedom and companionship. Jaluk and the visitor walked alone. The visitor asked why Jaluk was out by himself. Jaluk explained some tasks required breaks. The visitor suddenly understood and cheered. Jaluk noted they had arrived at their destination, signaling the start of a new experience. They discovered a hidden bar, surprising the visitor. Jaluk calmly entered. While the visitor marveled at the unexpected location, inside, the bartender greeted them. The visitor hesitated but followed Jaluk's lead, preparing for a relaxing drink. The bartender served drinks with ice. Jaluk accepted graciously, and the visitor thanked him, ready to enjoy the quiet evening together. Jaluk and the visitor sat at the bar. The visitor expressed excitement, wishing he had known about this place earlier. Jaluk offered a drink, suggesting the visitor stop staring and enjoy it. The visitor hesitated, then accepted. Both enjoyed the cocktails, surprised at their cool taste. Jaluk remarked on the novelty, while the visitor marveled at the flavor. The visitor praised the bartender's magic skills. Ludwig introduced himself and asked for the bartender's name. The bartender revealed her name as Elsie. Both Jaluk and Ludwig acknowledged the name, impressed by her skill and hospitality. Elsie asked for Jaluk's name. He introduced himself calmly as Zilk Lurin, catching her attention. Elsie recognized him as the magic toolmaker who invented the refrigerator. Zilk humbly downplayed his work, explaining it eased his own life. She studied Zilk and Ludwig closely, noting they didn't resemble each other much, despite sharing a surname. The observation surprised both men. Elsie commented on their appearance. Ludwig explained Zilk was his brother-in-law, and Zilk remained indifferent. Zilk reflected internally that, as the eldest son who never married, he had left responsibilities to his younger sibling. Ludwig observed Elsie quietly serving drinks. He was impressed by her calm and efficient handling of talkative customers. Zilk and Ludwig entered the bar. They were surprised when Elsie immediately recognized Zilk. 8, a familiar acquaintance, appeared and greeted Zilk warmly. Zilk was nonchalant, explaining 8 had recently started coming to the bar. Ludwig asked Zilk about the newcomer. Zilk remained composed, while Ludwig tried to understand the connection. 8 introduced himself as Zilk's friend. Zilk protested, explaining they had met many times, confirming a light-hearted friendship. 8 teased Zilk for acting cold while eating a drink. Zilk calmly defended himself, noting familiarity with others was rare. 8 looked at Zilk curiously, trying to understand his reserved nature. Zilk remained composed, observing quietly. 8 suddenly realized Zilk had good friends, expressing surprise and joy. Zilk listened silently, reflecting on the revelation. Elsie asked what drinks they wanted. Zilk and Ludwig responded quickly, 8 happily commenting on Zilk's friendly nature. Zilk inquired about Marietta at the market. 8 mentioned seeing him recently, confirming that Zilk's life intersected with familiar faces. At the bar, Zilk and his friends noticed a woman from their party. They observed her quietly, curious about her presence. 8 teased Zilk, noting how much time he had been spending with her lately. Zilk remained calm, sipping his drink. 8 remarked that Zilk seemed calmer than when they were at the lake. Zilk considered the comment thoughtfully. 8 asked if Zilk had said anything to Mariella. Zilk reflected on the recent events and her changed behavior. Zilk noted that unlike other women, he felt natural and relaxed around Mariella. 8 agreed, impressed by the difference in her demeanor. Zilk smiled quietly, accepting the situation with ease. He seemed at peace, sipping his drink calmly. 8 and Ludwig reacted with surprise, questioning whether Zilk had said something unnecessary to a girl again. Zilk explained he was simply advising on maintaining distance from a freedom-loving bachelor. 8 listened, startled but intrigued. Zilk continued, noting that the girl's ability to follow guidance came from her good character. 8 nodded thoughtfully. 8 jokingly asked if Zilk was thinking about getting married. Zilk remained calm, while 8 expressed gratitude, teasing lightly. 8 reflected on the idea of getting married, finding it surprisingly appealing. Zilk and Ludwig observed quietly, sipping their drinks. Zilk reacted in shock internally. He couldn't believe that 8, who had remained single for so long, would consider marriage. Zilk turned to Elsie, thinking 8 had lost his mind. He wondered if there was any reason behind this sudden change. The group fell silent. Zilk, 8, Ludwig, and Elsie all processed the unexpected conversation, each reacting differently to the awkward tension. Zilk Rulin was focused on preparing magical tools in his workshop when a knock on the door interrupted his work. He looked up surprised to see a familiar face approaching, and immediately recognized 8 entering the room. 8 introduced Mariella, explaining they had come to consult Zilk about a matter related to his workshop. Rouge's expression shifted to shock as she realized Zilk knew both 8 and Mariella from before. 8 and Mariella expressed surprise that Zilk had friends, while Rouge observed the situation with mild concern. Zilk Rulin refused to meet 8 and Mariella at first, asking his assistant to tell them he was not available. Despite his refusal, 8 and Mariella noticed that Zilk's eyes briefly met theirs, hinting at recognition and past familiarity. Rouge reminded Zilk to handle the situation carefully, as he already depended on 8 for certain matters in the workshop. Zilk agreed to guide them, asking for details about their visit while leading them to the reception room. 8 and Mariella revealed their decision to get married, presenting Zilk with the purpose of their consultation. Zilk responded calmly to 8 and Mariella's marriage announcement, noting it was something worth celebrating despite their expectation for a stronger reaction. He explained that he had anticipated this outcome after observing their interactions at the central market, leaving Mariella slightly embarrassed. 8 clarified that their decision was made quickly, but after being together as part of the same adventuring party, they understood each other well. Zilk pointed out that Mariella had struggled to close the distance with 8, making her flustered. 8 reassured Mariella that their shared adventures as a party allowed them to understand each other naturally, highlighting their strong bond. 8 requested Zilk attend their wedding, but Zilk immediately refused, questioning the reason behind the invitation. Mariella and 8 reacted in surprise, unsure why Zilk would decline such an important request. Zilk explained that his relationship with 8 and Mariella was limited, while they considered their bond meaningful despite limited encounters. 8 clarified that, despite appearances, his connection with Zilk was deep, reflecting their mutual understanding and shared experiences. He reminded Zilk that at their age, few remain single, emphasizing Zilk's value as a friend who shared similar views on life. 8 asked Zilk to celebrate their wedding, but Zilk paused, considering whether attending was truly necessary. Zilk reflected that the world valued marriage and family, seeing 8 and others as conventional. Despite his differing perspective, he realized that 8's closeness to him stemmed from shared sensibilities, highlighting the deep connections he maintained with few friends. Zilk considered the meaning of their bond, acknowledging that true friendship was rare and only with those he genuinely connected to. 8 asked why Zilk seemed upset, prompting Zilk to think quietly about the unusual nature of their shared understanding and friendship. Zilk explained that he chooses to live single and does not agree with the idea of marriage, refusing to attend the wedding. 8 and Mariella noticed Zilk's seriousness, realizing that his refusal came from deeply held personal beliefs rather than indifference. Mariella admitted that she normally does not think much about others' matters, surprised by Zilk's careful consideration of their request. She commented that Zilk's way of thinking is sincere, showing that his perspective is thoughtful and honest compared to others. 8 reassured Zilk that regardless of his thoughts, they wanted him to celebrate with them, and urged him to join the occasion. 8 encouraged Zilk to join the wedding celebration, asking him not to worry and to simply come along. Later, Zilk received an envelope, addressed by Rouge, which caught his attention and made him pause in thought. He examined the envelope carefully, pondering its contents and the decision he had yet to make. 8 and Mariella mentioned that Rouge would be attending, highlighting her involvement and their care for each other. Zilk admitted he was still deciding whether to attend, reflecting on the invitation and his personal principles. Zilk commented on the situation, noting Ate and Mariella's persistence, and teasing him for his hesitation, calling out his twisted nature. They emphasized that attending the wedding and offering congratulations was a small request for the happiness of the couple. Ate and Mariella reminded Zilk that the main purpose was to make Ate and Mariella happy, even if he felt conflicted. Zilk reflected that the couple's feelings should be prioritized since they were the stars of the wedding celebration. Yet he felt internally conflicted, as the thought of marriage gnawed at him, making the decision to attend emotionally complex. Zilk felt frustrated as he wanted to congratulate Ate and Mariella, but struggled with the feeling of not belonging at the wedding. While preparing his workshop, he remembered he had forgotten to inform Ate about the new grinder, momentarily shifting his focus. Later, Zilk left his home, heading out with briefcase in hand, encountering someone unexpectedly at the entrance. A young woman approached Zilk, asking for help recording a new song, reminding him of a prior promise. Zilk considered refusing due to his mood, but she cheerfully insisted, prompting him to gather his things and head to their usual café. Zilk arrived at the café and noticed the woman inside through the window, preparing to record her song. She added sugar to her coffee, causing a small mishap, which Zilk observed quietly from outside. Zilk reminded her that peeking at someone from a window was not good, noting he had only been in her line of sight. She asked Zilk if he could make a song for her, prompting him to consider the request seriously. Zilk listened as she explained she liked romantic songs, setting the theme for the piece he was about to compose. Zilk sat across from the woman at the cafe, finally agreeing to help her with the song composition. He listened carefully as she prepared, noticing subtle musical notations and rhythms in her practice. She stopped him, commenting that he was acting strangely today, prompting him to explain his distracted behavior. She noted that his singing was off rhythm and pitch, clearly affected by something on his mind. Zilk apologized sincerely, admitting he had a lot on his mind, which made her tease him lightly for his honesty. Zilk reflected on the woman's words, realizing she encouraged him to voice any worries to ease his mind. She explained that even if talking didn't solve his problems, expressing them could provide some relief, teasing him lightly for being creepy. Zilk agreed, taking her advice to heart, and reminded himself not to take things too seriously as she suggested. She admitted her frustration when friends get married, but clarified it was from a desire to celebrate their happiness. Despite disliking weddings, she emphasized that she wanted to participate in her friend's special day, revealing her conflicted but sincere nature. The woman observed Zilk, noting his inner conflict and suggesting that his hesitation reflected his true feelings about attending the wedding. Zilk recalled his previous life, where he had attended a friend's wedding only as a formality, lacking genuine engagement. He considered Ate's wedding, wanting to celebrate for his precious friend, yet struggling with how to express his emotions appropriately. The woman suggested that if he couldn't express feelings verbally, he could go all out with a meaningful gift for the couple. She reminded Zilk that, as a maker of magical tools, he could create something special to make both Ate and Mariella truly happy. Zilk considered what kind of gift he could give, dismissing the grinder as unsuitable for Mariella's wedding present. He realized the solution did not yet exist in this world, sparking an idea in his mind. As he walked with Ate and Mariella, he reflected on his conflicted feelings about Ate's marriage, feeling bittersweet but supportive. Zilk resolved that if marriage was the path to Ate's happiness, he would accept it and celebrate sincerely. He apologized to the musician for delaying her song, promising to create it another time, and left the cafe with a plan forming. Zilk Rulin arrived in a carriage at the quiet town, dressed in his formal attire for the wedding. He gazed calmly at the surroundings, ready for the day ahead. Stepping down, Zilk was greeted by the attendants who welcomed him politely. He acknowledged them with his usual composed demeanor. Two acquaintances noticed him, and were surprised by his appearance. They whispered among themselves, commenting on how grand Zilk looked for the occasion. Zilk adjusted his suit, insisting it was normal. The others continued to admire his presence, noting that even tidied up, he drew attention. Despite the subtle warnings from his friends, Zilk remained resolute. He assured them he would stay out of trouble and enjoy the event quietly. As always, Zilk and his friends arrived at a towering, ornate church. The sunlight highlighted its spires, signaling the significance of the wedding taking place inside. They walked through the courtyard, noting the grandeur of the building. Zilk's companions discussed the groom's status, impressed by the wealth required for such a venue. Zilk recalled his usual adventures, preferring to work alone. He observed a brief skirmish outside the church and stayed composed, unaffected by the chaos. His friends remarked on his unusual combination of skills as both a top-ranked adventurer and a magical tool craftsman, prompting Zilk's quiet contemplation. Inside, the church honored the goddess Rustiara. The attendees prepared for the ceremony, reflecting the faith that governed love and creation in the capital. Zilk recalled the true ruler of the world, Hitorigami, who remained hidden from public view. Unlike the goddess Rustiara, Hitorigami was far from beautiful and unrecognized by the people. He considered how this secret god governed the world quietly, unseen by society, and wondered about the imaginary images people created for comfort. Zilk and his friends entered the grand church for the wedding. The cathedral, with its high arches and sunlight streaming in, contrasted sharply with the hidden ruler's obscurity. The groom appeared, opening the door. Zilk and his companions looked on with surprise and admiration at his composed, elegant presence. They noticed how perfectly the groom's attire suited him, ensuring he would not be overshadowed, even with Zilk nearby, making the moment dignified and harmonious. Zilk watched the groom and smiled quietly. The ceremony was about to begin, and the atmosphere was filled with anticipation. The bride appeared, radiant in her wedding dress. Zilk and the others admired her transformation from adventurer attire to elegant ceremonial clothing. Guests reacted with delight, applauding the bride as she gracefully entered the church. Her charm and beauty captivated everyone present. Zilk and his companions noticed how different she looked from her usual adventurer self. Appreciating the remarkable change, the couple proceeded to sign the marriage documents. The ceremony continued smoothly, symbolizing the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. The newlyweds exchanged a quiet glance, smiling at each other, as the ceremony concluded. Their joy was evident without words. They shared a kiss, sealing their vows in front of everyone. Petals floated gently through the cathedral, framing the moment. Zilk observed the couple walking down the aisle, arm in arm, radiating happiness. The ceremony had gone smoothly, and the bride and groom were content. Outside, guests celebrated and mingled, enjoying the sunny day at the grand cathedral. Laughter and cheer filled the courtyard. At the reception, the groom reflected on the day while seated with his friends. They discussed what might come next, quietly enjoying the afterglow of the wedding. At the reception, Zilk and his friends were instructed to wait until the bride and groom joined them. They could eat or mingle with other guests. In the meantime, Rouge decided to socialize with the adventurers, while Zilk and the others remained at their table, observing the room. The table discussed the presence of many high-ranking adventurers. Some guests were intimidated, sensing the skill and reputation surrounding the group. Despite the tension, his friends reminded each other to enjoy the celebration and not go overboard. Zilk opted to pass the time quietly eating and observing, reflecting on the ceremony and the lively atmosphere around the banquet hall. At the banquet, a massive grilled crab was served. Zilk and his friends were amazed by its size and presentation. Zilk explained that it was made from a rare rank monster ingredient, prized even in high-end restaurants. His friends were shocked and impressed. Zilk tasted the crab, savoring its rich flavor. The delicacy far surpassed anything he had eaten before, making the meal extraordinary. He recalled similar crabs from past adventures, but noted the unmatched quality and seasoning of this dish. Zilk quietly appreciated the feast, realizing that just being able to taste such a rare dish made attending the wedding worthwhile. Two women approached Zilk and his companions at the banquet, politely asking if they could join their table. Zilk glanced at them with mild curiosity. The women introduced themselves as Flair, a friend of the bride, and Belusa, greeting everyone warmly. Zilk's friends were struck by how handsome Zilk looked up close, even more so than the groom, and tried to sneak glances while the women asked for names. Tristan greeted the women enthusiastically. The conversation grew lively as the women expressed interest in meeting Zilk. Zilk quietly introduced himself as Zilk Lauren. The women reacted with shock and excitement upon realizing he was the famous magic tool craftsman, creating a buzz at the table. The women eagerly asked Zilk to tell them about magic tools. He mentally groaned, anticipating the flood of questions, but knew he had to remain polite. Zilk reflected that he would normally drive them away, but since it was a wedding, he decided to endure the questions without causing a scene. He smiled calmly and asked what they wanted to know about magic tools, carefully keeping the conversation smooth to maintain the atmosphere. The women were amazed to learn that Zilk had been a prodigy, drawing blueprints for a refrigerator at 8 years old. Zilk glanced around, noticing more women joining the group. He quietly wondered when the number of women at his table had increased so much, feeling overwhelmed but composed. Zilk silently wished he could grab the grilled crab and leave, overwhelmed by the crowd and attention at the banquet. The bride requested a moment with Zilk, politely interrupting the group's private time. He braced himself for another round of social interaction. Zilk's popularity became obvious as more guests approached, curious to speak with him. He noted the attention with a mixture of surprise and mild exasperation. The bride and Tristan praised Zilk for handling the situation smoothly, acknowledging his composed demeanor despite the unexpected attention. Zilk's companions observed the scene, noting that his choice to intervene and cut the socializing short was the right move to maintain harmony at the table. Rouge arrived at the table earlier than expected. Tristan reassured her that their order had just been switched, easing her worry. Tristan and Rouge congratulated the newlyweds, praising how perfect the couple looked together. The bride and groom thanked them politely, acknowledging the warm wishes and smiles from Zilk and his companions. Mariella expressed her happiness in receiving congratulations from Zilk, appreciating his presence and recognition at the wedding. Zilk quietly returned the gratitude, showing proper respect and composure as the newlyweds and their friends shared the joyful moment. Zilk approached the newlyweds and told them he had something he wanted to give them. The couple looked at him curiously, intrigued by the gift. Tristan and Mariella expressed excitement and anticipation, wondering what Zilk, known for his skills and ingenuity, could possibly have prepared for them. Zilk opened a small box, revealing a set of rings. The couple's eyes widened in surprise and delight. Jaluk Rulin observed a set of rings presented before him. He examined them carefully, noting their significance to married couples. The rings were designed as endless circles, representing eternal love. Jaluk considered the thought and craftsmanship behind the symbolic design. His friends reacted with surprise, understanding the meaning of the rings. Jaluk quietly appreciated the way traditions conveyed emotions. Suddenly, the rings displayed magical properties. A protective barrier activated, demonstrating their unexpected functionality beyond symbolism. Jaluk realized that in this world, rings were uncommon gifts. He reflected on how meaningful a simple present could become. Jaluk Rulin and Eth hesitated, unsure if accepting the rings was appropriate. They observed the gift with careful attention. The presenter explained the tradition of wearing rings on the left-hand ring finger, believed to connect directly to the heart. Jaluk and his friends reacted with interest as they learned the practical and symbolic reasons behind the choice. Eth indicated which finger the ring should go on. Jaluk followed her guidance, preparing for the ceremonial exchange. The rings were placed carefully on each finger. Both Jaluk and Eth appreciated the moment quietly, treasuring the meaningful gesture. Jaluk and Eth held hands as the rings settled onto their fingers. Their friends watched with admiration. Both felt the rings fit perfectly, as if made for them, a symbol of shared life ahead. The crowd cheered, applauding the couple. Jaluk and Eth smiled at each other, sharing a quiet connection amidst the celebration. They proudly displayed the rings, appreciating their value as the best present they had received. A friend jokingly revealed a tracking spell on Eth's ring, and Jaluk reacted with surprise, though it added humor to the moment. Jaluk joked, causing Eth to glare at him suspiciously. Friends commented on his unusual humor with mild exasperation. Some attendees expressed disbelief at Jaluk's behavior, noting how he undermined his otherwise thoughtful actions. Despite the humor, Eth and the friends discussed the ring's potential popularity, sensing they would become a trend. Jaluk observed others admiring the rings, feeling the excitement and curiosity surrounding their elegant design. A friend reminded everyone to focus on the wedding, setting aside business matters. Jaluk and Eth agreed, enjoying the present moment. Jaluk reflected that even if the world changed or he were reborn, he would remain true to himself. He considered his beliefs and identity unchanged, anchored by his soul's constancy, despite new surroundings. Jaluk and Eth smiled warmly, holding hands and sharing a quiet happiness, with their friends watching supportively. Their rings shone on their fingers, a symbol of commitment and the enduring bond between them. The scene shifted to peace at home. Life continued calmly, with Jaluk and Eth enjoying ordinary moments together. Jaluk prepared the food dehydrator, checking the layers of fruit and vegetables carefully. He noted the timing was perfect. The dried fruits were crisp and flavorful. Jaluk admired his work, proud of the magical tool's efficiency. He cooked additional dishes on the stove, ensuring each plate was properly prepared. The kitchen was orderly and methodical. Fried eggs sizzled in the pan, filling the room with a comforting aroma. Jaluk worked with precision. He chopped fresh vegetables for a salad, completing the meal. Every step reflected care and attention to detail, showing his enjoyment of daily life. Jaluk prepared dried fruit yogurt, carefully arranging each piece in the bowl. The process was precise and satisfying. He finished the full breakfast, including eggs, toast, fruit, and coffee. Everything looked inviting and complete. He enjoyed the meal, savoring the crunch of dried fruit and the warmth of the coffee, appreciating the flavors. Jaluk reflected that a good breakfast was the perfect start to a productive day, reinforcing his daily routine. Looking out at the morning sky, he felt optimistic, sensing that today would be a good day. Jaluk walked down the stairs, carrying his bag, noticing something unusual on the way to his mailbox. He discovered a letter in his mailbox, glancing at the envelope with curiosity and concern. Recognizing his family crest, Jaluk's expression shifted. He unfolded the letter, reading carefully, thoughts racing. Realizing it was an invitation to a dinner party, he sighed, feeling his perfect morning slightly disrupted. He returned home, greeted warmly, and prepared to make coffee, resuming his routine despite the unexpected letter. Jaluk and his friend discussed coffee, joking about its taste while preparing for the day ahead. A messenger arrived, dropping off a large shipment. Jaluk noticed the unusual quantity and paused in surprise. He opened the boxes to find numerous letters, requests to make wedding rings from various clients. His friends explained that anyone witnessing something beautiful would naturally want it included in their own weddings. They discussed the symbolic meaning of rings, reflecting on love and the value of tangible tokens, while Jaluk pondered the practical side. Jaluk's friends confronted him, frustrated and annoyed that he had suggested the idea yet criticized it. They explained that because of his suggestion, he now had to handle the growing number of wedding ring orders. Jaluk hesitated, reluctant to accept the responsibility, noting the majority of requests were from high-ranked adventurers. He insisted on his policy of not making things he didn't want to, maintaining his personal boundaries. His friends argued he could still benefit from the materials for magical tools, trying to persuade him to reconsider. Jaluk's friends encouraged him to take advantage of the wedding ring requests, emphasizing the potential to gain materials and resources. He reflected on the necessity of building connections with high-ranking adventurers to acquire rare magical stones and monster materials. Jaluk realized that the more connections he had, the more resources he could gather for crafting magical tools. After considering the benefits, he nodded in agreement, understanding the practical side of fulfilling the requests. He decided to delegate the wedding ring production to his family, ensuring efficiency while maintaining focus on his own priorities. Jaluk arrived at a large family dining room, noticing the quiet and grandeur of the setting. His arrival surprised everyone, prompting exclamations and expressions of shock from family and servants alike. Eth explained that Jaluk had successfully traveled without incident, calming the group and sharing small victories. Jaluk looked around, slightly irritated by their murmurings, questioning the purpose of the fuss over his presence. His parents expressed relief and happiness, commenting on how unusual it was for him to visit after so long. Jaluk addressed his family at the dining table, his presence drawing attention from his parents and siblings. He greeted his older brother warmly, acknowledging the long time since their last meeting with a quiet smile. Jaluk saw his younger sibling, Alto, held by a caretaker, and felt a mix of surprise and affection at how much had changed. Jaluk Rulin attended a noble gathering where he met Alto and his family. He noticed Alto's wife holding their child, a warm but formal reunion after a long time apart. A conversation unfolded about family histories. Jaluk struggled to recall Feble's maiden name, prompting disbelief from others. He tried to carefully remember the details of her family. Alto's wife explained that this was only their third meeting, so forgetting details was understandable. Jaluk accepted the situation and focused on maintaining politeness. The children greeted their parents with joy. Jaluk observed the family interactions quietly, noting the children's playful energy. Alto reminded Jaluk to remember Feble's maiden name, Tist, to avoid future misunderstandings. Jaluk nodded, appreciating the lesson and the importance of careful memory. Jaluk and Feble sat with Alto at a family meeting, listening attentively as someone addressed them formally. Alto's parent remarked on the grandchildren, questioning when the eldest son would present his own. Jaluk felt the weight of expectation quietly. The conversation escalated as both Jaluk and the elder expressed frustration at having to repeat themselves. Tension filled the room. Alto's wife defended Jaluk, emphasizing his dedication to magical tool development and his productive independent life. Jaluk firmly declared that the existing grandchildren were enough and rejected any pressure to marry, maintaining his autonomy and focus on work. Jaluk listened as his parent expressed high expectations, reminding him of his responsibilities as the eldest son. He remained composed, quietly acknowledging the words. Feble suggested they focus on enjoying a meal together now that everyone was present, easing the tension in the room. The family celebrated mealtime with enthusiasm. Sarah excitedly joined, and William prepared to assist, creating a lively, cheerful atmosphere. Feble and another family member wondered if Jaluk's compliance had a hidden reason, noting his unusually willing behavior. Jaluk openly admitted his plan to delegate work, and the family recognized his honesty while realizing his method of managing responsibilities. Feble wondered aloud what kind of work Jaluk intended to pass on to them, curious about his motives. Alto and his wife connected the discussion to Jaluk's wedding gifts, realizing the topic might relate to the rings he made for his friend's wedding. Jaluk explained that he had been receiving many ring requests since then and wanted to hand over some tasks to his family, sharing responsibility. Febble protested, reminding him that they were not simply his subcontractors, though she acknowledged his success with magical tools. Jaluk encouraged them to examine some ring samples, guiding the family through the work he wanted them to handle, bridging collaboration with curiosity. Febble asked if the family could help with Jaluk's project, curious about the work he intended to delegate. William explained that he and Myra were already busy producing improved refrigerators, fulfilling ongoing responsibilities. Febble admitted she was occupied with teaching and meeting production quotas for magical tools, unable to assist. Alto also declined, citing his duties as a lord, leaving Jaluk to reconsider his plan. Jaluk realized that no one could help, so he would need to request assistance from an acquaintance, skilled in magical tool creation, acknowledging his difficult position. Feeble raised her hand, expressing her desire to try making the magical rings herself, surprising the family. Alto gently reminded her not to force herself, noting her responsibilities with raising Abel, while Febble reassured him that her health and energy had improved. Jaluk considered the request carefully and decided to let Febble take charge of producing the rings, giving her the opportunity she wanted. He added a condition: Febble would accept the production only if Jaluk attended the Aquinas family's party the following week. Jaluk was startled by Leonard's insistence that he personally accompany Febble, leaving him surprised, but willing to comply to ensure the project moved forward. Jaluk grimaced at the thought of attending social events, internally frustrated that Leonard insisted he participate, despite knowing his dislike for gatherings. His younger brother reminded him that refusing would be awkward, as Jaluk had many admirers among the nobles, making his presence necessary. Jaluk considered negotiating other conditions, hoping to find some compromise before agreeing. He reluctantly agreed to attend the Aquinas family's party, though the idea of a matchmaking scenario made him anxious. The family finalized the plan, expressing their excitement, while Jaluk mentally prepared himself for next week's obligations. Jaluk was asked about the production of the wedding rings, prompting him to explain how he had delegated the task. He revealed that he left the responsibility to Alto's wife, trusting her to handle it. The discussion shifted to Feeble, noting that she had returned to work after having her baby, and was already familiar with the family's practices. Jaluk mentioned that he had agreed to attend a party as part of the exchange for her assistance, acknowledging the social obligation. Feeble commented on the audacity of the younger brother, recognizing the effort it took to involve family and work while balancing expectations. William expressed excitement about attending a party, contrasting Jaluk's reserved reaction and anticipation of social stress. The party was described as dazzling, with extravagant food and young noble ladies in glamorous attire, creating a sparkling atmosphere. Jaluk reflected that nobility parties were not as ideal as they seemed, recognizing the effort required to navigate them. He noted that conversations were filled with fake pleasantries, requiring careful speech and behavior to maintain social standing. Rouge commented that when ladies gathered, they gossiped about husbands, showing the shallow and competitive nature of the noblewoman, leaving Jaluk bemused by the social complexity. Rouge agreed that Jaluk's view of noble parties was accurate, though slightly exaggerated, leaving William shocked by the candid truth. Jaluk explained that glamorous noble gatherings were a swirl of negative emotions, not the idealized vision many imagined. He assigned Rouge to go over the final details of the wedding ring production with Febble, ensuring the project would run smoothly. Jaluk prepared for the upcoming party, checking his suit and reflecting on the importance of self-discipline. The morning of the event, Jaluk was greeted politely by the family, but remained mindful of the social intricacies he would face that evening. Jaluk explained to the butler that his tense shoulders made wearing formal attire uncomfortable, reassuring him he was conscious of his posture. Febble, Jaluk, and Alto's wife arrived at the party, noting the elegant setting and preparing to meet the other guests. Jaluk reflected that the comment was only about his appearance, and he acknowledged the compliment, easing some of his tension. The group observed the Aquinas family party, noting the fashionable attendees and the grandeur of the event. Jaluk commented that not everyone could be called fashionable, sharing a quiet judgment on the ostentatious displays among the guests. The ballroom was set, with tables arranged elegantly and dishes prepared, creating a festive and formal atmosphere. Musicians performed on stage while bartenders attended to guests, completing the sophisticated party environment. Jaluk, William, Febble, and Alto's wife entered, taking in the scene with measured attention and anticipation. The group noticed murmuring among the guests, sensing curiosity and whispers directed at their arrival. Many attendees were surprised to see Jaluk make an appearance, recognizing him as the eldest son of the Rulin family and noting the significance of his presence. Febble reminded Jaluk that it had been a year since he last attended a party, emphasizing how unusual his presence was. Guests noticed Jaluk's arrival with excitement, recognizing him immediately and reacting with admiration and surprise. Leonard, welcoming him personally, noted that Jaluk's presence alone caused the crowd to buzz, showing that he remained as popular and respected as ever. Jaluk Rulin attended a grand party, walking into a hall filled with nobles. He recognized several familiar faces from his past, including Leonard Aquinas, who stood surrounded by friends. Leonard reflected on their shared history at the Royal Academy. Now the head of his family, he wondered why Jaluk, his unmarried friend, had never attended any of his previous events. Jaluk explained he disliked large gatherings and only came when the timing was right. Leonard listened, slightly frustrated, but understanding the reasons behind Jaluk's absence. Questions arose about another friend, Grease. Leonard learned that Grease had been unable to attend due to urgent work on magical sword materials. Jaluk acknowledged that Grease was another unmarried friend from the Royal Academy, realizing their small circle of single companions had remained close, despite busy lives. Greasus worked in his forge, carefully shaping a magic sword. He gathered materials whenever he felt inspired, testing each blade immediately, under the moonlight. Grease faced a fierce creature. He tested his latest magic sword, adjusting techniques while collecting necessary resources. Back at the party, Jaluk Rulin observed the interaction between friends. Alto had successfully convinced Jaluk to attend the gathering tonight. Jaluk discussed their reason for attending. The older brother had required conditions, showing a deep bond between siblings and close friends. A young noblewoman inquired about Leonard's status. Jaluk realized their circle remained closely connected, with single friends supporting one another. Jaluk teased Leonard lightly at the party. Leonard flustered, tried to avoid attention, while Jaluk smiled knowingly, enjoying the playful interaction. Observing Leonard, Jaluk realized the reason he remained unmarried. Leonard's interests were not in women or traditional marriage, keeping him aloof from proposals. Leonard explained his view on family and children. He was content adopting heirs, showing he could fulfill noble responsibilities without marriage. Leonard stood confidently with 2 adopted children. Though single, he had completed his duties and embraced a free life, managing responsibilities gracefully. Jaluk laughed as Leonard expressed strong interest in work. The noble's enthusiasm shifted entirely toward his profession, leaving romance entirely aside. Jaluk encouraged Ilya to model outfits for his brand. Ilya recalled unpleasant memories of playing dress-up, feeling hesitant but polite. Ilya refused, holding on to her composure. Jaluk noted her reaction, observing that she remained steadfast, despite the playful suggestion. Jaluk and Leonard continued to discuss their work and studies. Both revealed they had stayed productive, gathering materials and sacred relics. 3 young nobles approached the pair, asking to join the conversation. Jaluk and Leonard politely excused themselves to welcome the newcomers. The group walked together, swaying slightly, as Jaluk asked for their names. Leonard watched quietly, appreciating the friendly casual gathering atmosphere. Leonard met 3 young nobles, Marie L., Sofran, and Alicia. Each introduced themselves politely, revealing their noble heritage and family ties. Leonard appreciated their respectful greetings. He acknowledged the formality, remaining composed and gracious while receiving their introductions. Ilya expressed admiration for Jaluk Rulin, revealing she was a fan of his products. Leonard observed quietly, noting the positive interaction. Jaluk considered following Leonard's example. He decided to remain composed and let Leonard take the lead in managing the conversation with the nobles. Leonard invited questions from the group. Jaluk politely apologized for his curiosity, signaling his interest while deferring to Leonard's authority in the discussion. Leonard noticed etiquette was being overlooked. He reminded the young nobles that casual manners were improper for their status. Observing their reactions carefully, the 3 young ladies froze, realizing their mistake. Leonard and Jaluk assessed the situation, noting their nervousness from excitement and inexperience. Jaluk wondered why the girls hadn't left after Leonard's warning. He observed their frightened expressions, understanding their hesitation and awe. The young nobles bowed deeply, apologizing repeatedly. Leonard accepted their apologies and they quickly exited, humbled by the encounter. Leonard and Jaluk suggested the ladies rest in the lounge. The nobles agreed gratefully, relieved to follow the guidance of the experienced men. The young noblewoman explained that Leonard's polite demeanor created an unexpectedly intimidating aura. Jaluk observed silently as they walked away. Ilya commented that Jaluk remained socially awkward. The group noticed, reflecting on their interactions with the noble friends and each other. The women discussed Leonard's presence. To outsiders, he appeared the perfect bachelor, naturally attracting attention despite his disinterest in romance. Jaluk pointed out the unspoken rules among noblewomen. They agreed that the young ladies should have observed from a distance instead of approaching directly. Leonard and Jaluk sat together afterward. They discussed the peculiar situation, noting that Leonard's status, good looks, and background made his single life unusual yet admired. Jaluk and Leonard reflected on Jaluk's single life. Leonard noted he had never seen Jaluk with a girlfriend, appreciating his calm solitude. Jaluk explained that marriage would bring additional burdens, including family obligations. He preferred living freely, without interference from others. He emphasized his desire for personal autonomy. Jaluk enjoyed managing his life as he pleased, without anyone meddling in his decisions. Leonard agreed, noting that personal happiness could come from staying single. Both acknowledged that marriage was not their immediate goal. They continued to converse amicably. Jaluk asked about Leonard's work, and Leonard noted that everything was progressing smoothly, strengthening their mutual respect and understanding. Jaluk reviewed his designs, noting that his business was a success. Profits were high, and his creations sold rapidly, reflecting his skill and reputation. Leonard listened as Jaluk lamented not finding a model who inspired him. Leonard sympathized, understanding the challenge of discovering fresh talent. Jaluk refused a ridiculous offer from Leonard, who jokingly suggested paying him to be someone's personal model. Both laughed at the absurdity. Jaluk recalled past experiences with dress-up dolls. Leonard silently wondered how many women had cried from interactions with Jaluk's playful but demanding nature. Leonard teased Jaluk about his inner thoughts leaking out. Jaluk insisted it was a joke, though both knew the truth, enjoying their playful camaraderie. Jaluk and Leonard shared a quiet moment at the party, enjoying conversation while observing other guests. Both smiled, appreciating the calm. Leonard encouraged Jaluk to socialize more. He reminded him that mingling with others was part of his responsibilities as a noble. Jaluk reluctantly agreed when Alto offered to guide him. Leonard insisted it was appropriate, ensuring Jaluk joined the social flow respectfully. Alto escorted Jaluk, while Leonard watched. The young noble expressed frustration, but appreciated Leonard's encouragement, realizing it was necessary for proper etiquette. Afterward, Jaluk felt exhausted. The interaction, though polite and playful, had taken a toll, leaving him physically drained but socially aware. Jaluk approached a table filled with women, catching their attention immediately. The crowd reacted excitedly to his presence and reputation. Leonard and Jaluk observed the gathering. The women were curious about Jaluk's new creation, the ring, and awaited his explanation eagerly. Jaluk noticed Catalina among the crowd. Her presence surprised him as she had been surrounded by other nobles, making her difficult to spot. Leonard and Jaluk approached Catalina. They realized she had been quietly observing the party, blending in despite the bustling social scene. Jaluk and Catalina made eye contact. The connection was instant, as the atmosphere shifted slightly, highlighting her presence amidst the lively gathering. Jaluk stood on the balcony, enjoying the cool night air. The serene atmosphere offered a rare moment of calm during the bustling party. Catalina approached Jaluk, upset that he hadn't helped her earlier. She accused him of noticing her glare, but ignoring her request. Jaluk explained he wasn't obligated to help, emphasizing that he wasn't her fiancé. Catalina grew frustrated, insisting he should have acted. Observing Catalina, Jaluk noted she had been swarmed by admirers. He acknowledged the situation, understanding the challenge she faced. Catalina clarified she wanted to focus on her music. Romance and social entanglements were not her priority, and Jaluk respected her independence. Catalina scolded Jaluk about refusing requests publicly. She noticed he had been observing the earlier interactions, commenting on his merciless demeanor. She asked Jaluk to introduce her to a famous designer. She wanted to commission a custom dress, hoping to secure his attention and guidance. Jaluk hesitated, noting the designer's popularity and the long wait for standard requests. Catalina's determination was clear, and he weighed the situation carefully. Jaluk recalled Leonard's previous complaints about a doll to dress up. He realized the designer's influence was significant and required strategic thinking. Leonard decided that Catalina was a perfect match for the designer's clothing line. Her talent as a composer complemented the business, making the introduction mutually beneficial. Catalina was initially suspicious of Jaluk's intentions. She wondered why he was unusually kind, questioning if there was a hidden catch. Jaluk assured her there were no ulterior motives. He maintained his composure, explaining that his actions were sincere and thoughtful. He thanked her for the premium tickets she had provided, showing appreciation for her generosity and acknowledging her contributions. Catalina prepared to be introduced to Leonard. Jaluk facilitated the meeting, noting that such an introduction was rare and meaningful. Catalina formally greeted Leonard. She expressed her honor at meeting the famous Viscount Aquinas. While Jaluk watched the interaction with mild amusement, Leonard formally introduced himself to Catalina. He expressed gratitude for her talent as an up-and-coming composer, establishing a respectful connection. Catalina explained she wanted a custom dress designed for her performance. Jaluk observed the interaction carefully, noting her seriousness. Leonard agreed to design the dress. He invited her to visit his shop, pleased to assist a promising young talent. Jaluk whispered his approval to Leonard, recognizing Catalina's potential and her suitability as a client and muse for the designer. Leonard encouraged using Catalina as a dress-up doll, showing playful mentorship. Jaluk and the others reacted with mild amusement and curiosity. Leonard and Catalina walked together afterward. He reflected that her impulsive request deserved a response, while he felt a mix of amusement and sympathy. Jaluk Rulin arrived at the grand hall, observing the bustling crowd from the balcony. The evening's greeting rounds were about to begin. Guests murmured among themselves, recognizing the single aristocrat. Jaluk noted the attention he drew, aware that his presence was still as remarkable as ever. Jaluk's twin, nearby, pointed out Count Blend. Jaluk acknowledged the familiar noble, understanding that introductions were necessary, despite his wish for a quiet evening. Count Blend and his companion moved through the crowd toward Jaluk. The twins watched, surprised by the unexpected encounter. Count Blend confirmed the rumors. He had come specifically to see Jaluk, proving that even in another world, the single aristocrat remained a figure of intrigue and respect. Jaluk Rulin realized Count Blend's presence explained the crowd's excitement. Guests whispered about the unusual attendance of a count at a viscount's party. Alto Rulin, the younger Rulin family head, formally introduced himself to Count Blend. The count acknowledged the introduction, noting their connection through Jaluk. Count Blend expressed his hope to maintain friendly relations with Alto, highlighting his respect for Jaluk and the Rulin family. Alto reflected that his older brother rarely appeared at events like this, making the encounter with Count Blend unusual but welcome. The conversation shifted to magic tools. Both Alto and Count Blend confirmed they were craftsmen, though Alto worked at his family's workshop while Jaluk had his own. Their shared craft solidified a budding connection. Jaluk explained his preference for creativity over mass production. Count Blend and the others understood the need for a freer working environment. Count Blend asked about the coffee mill. Jaluk responded politely, noting he would discuss it later, when time permitted. Jaluk ensured the coffee was working smoothly for Count Blend, who appreciated the consistent quality, enjoying coffee daily thanks to Jaluk. Blend suggested selling the coffee mills commercially. Jaluk admitted he had been busy but planned to sell them eventually. Blend requested 50 automatic and 50 manual mills, wanting to share Jaluk's coffee creations with friends who loved the homemade coffee. Count Blend requested the coffee mills be ready within 2 weeks for the next tea party, emphasizing urgency politely. Jaluk expressed concern about the tight 2-week schedule, calculating how to meet the deadline while maintaining quality craftsmanship. Blend offered to purchase the mills at double price, and promised support if Jaluk faced any difficulties in production. Jaluk considered the Count's support invaluable. He believed he could manage the order alone but welcomed assistance from others. Jaluk noted his workshop had few employees, but planned to enlist his younger brother Alto's help to complete the order. Jaluk contemplated the Count's request, considering how to prepare the 50 automatic and 50 manual coffee mills in time. Alto observed Jaluk's reaction, noticing his concern about completing the order within 2 weeks. Evaluating the feasibility of the task, Jaluk agreed to help Count Blend, and confirmed he would personally ensure the order was completed, acknowledging the Count's support. Alto questioned the complexity of coffee mills, reassured by Jaluk that they were manageable and not magical, simplifying their approach. Jaluk thanked his older brother for assistance. Both resolved to meet the deadline, confident in teamwork and shared expertise with Alto. Alto acknowledged his older brother's consideration. Jaluk had carefully managed the coffee mill order to benefit both the family and nobles. Alto understood that forming connections with high-ranking nobles strengthened the family's position. The opportunity was advantageous for him as head. Jaluk admitted he had tested Alto with responsibilities, pushing him to grow. Alto recognized his brother's guidance and lessons. Jaluk encouraged Alto to attend social gatherings more often. He explained that visits and events were separate matters requiring distinct effort. The next day, Alto began handling the coffee mill order efficiently. Rouge assisted while Jaluk updated the orders from other nobles. Jaluk left the city, seeking a peaceful and remote place to rest, recovering from exhaustion after the exhausting party events. At the Adventurers Guild, Jaluk noticed an unusual object. Pausing as curiosity drew him closer to investigate. A heavily armored adventurer approached, recognizing Jaluk. Jaluk responded cautiously, asking the adventurer's identity and purpose in approaching him. The adventurer expressed surprise at Jaluk's lack of recognition, prompting Jaluk to explain he did not know who they were. A female mage nearby speculated that the helmet might obscure Jaluk's identity. Jaluk and the adventurer acknowledged the unusual misunderstanding. Jaluk still did not recognize the armored adventurer. He repeated that he did not know who the person before him was. The armored adventurer grew frustrated, insisting they had met at Eth's wedding. Jaluk remained confused, unable to recall the event. Jaluk apologized, explaining he had difficulty remembering faces and names. The female mage observed, noting the adventurer's attempts to be recognized. The armored adventurer demanded Jaluk memorize him immediately. He emphasized that they had attended the same party as Eth and Mariella. The mage introduced herself as Karen, Gwain's party member. Jaluk nodded, promising to remember Gwain, clarifying the identities of the adventurers. Jaluk politely thanked Gwain and Karen for not forcing him to memorize names. He appreciated their consideration and respectful approach. Gwain revealed their purpose, discussing wedding rings. Jaluk, still confused, asked for clarification while processing their request. Karen intervened, noting that Gwain's outburst alone was insufficient to convey the message. Jaluk listened carefully to her explanation. Gwain clarified their intent, to properly thank Jaluk for the present given to Eth and Mariella. Karen supported him. Jaluk acknowledged their gratitude calmly. He realized they went to considerable trouble just to express thanks. Impressed by their kindness, Gwain suggested forming a party with Jaluk. Jaluk turned away, questioning the proposal and asking what the new request involved. Jaluk declined, stating his principle of not joining a party with anyone. Gwain seemed surprised, but listened respectfully. Karen acknowledged Jaluk's refusal. They agreed not to force him, respecting his decision while observing his calm demeanor. Gwain waved farewell, encouraging Jaluk to contact him if he ever changed his mind. Jaluk reflected on their energy. Jaluk examined the assignment board at the Adventurers Guild, preparing to choose tasks while processing the earlier party interaction. Melina, a new guild staff member, introduced herself to Jaluk, apologizing for the late introduction while presenting a report. Melina offered information about the Eastern Forest. Jaluk noted he had just been assigned to the guild and listened attentively. Jaluk declined the explanation, thinking independently. He preferred collecting his own information rather than relying on reports from others. Jaluk explained that he made decisions based on his own judgment, carefully analyzing data rather than blindly trusting other people. Melina bowed politely, promising to work hard to prove herself. Jaluk reflected that guild employees faced challenging duties requiring diligence. Jaluk observed the guild lobby. Melina mentioned Vivian Senpai, and inquired about Jaluk's documents, confirming the staff interactions and workflow. Melina expressed concern that Jaluk had turned down assistance. Another guild member asked about the rejected documents, noting his independence. Melina praised Jaluk for remaining composed despite his documents being returned. She admired his restraint and professional demeanor in the guild. Melina revealed her admiration, declaring Jaluk extremely handsome. She expressed her fascination while blushing and emphasizing his impressive qualities. Melina detailed Jaluk's achievements: talented artificer, noble family son, skilled in combat, B-rank adventurer, and overall highly attractive and capable. Melina felt excitement building, declaring Jaluk wonderful despite occasional rudeness. She was eager to see the future interactions unfold. Karen, observing Melina, questioned her feelings toward Jaluk. Melina hesitated, nervously considering her own emotions and intentions. Melina boldly confessed romantic interest in Jaluk, surprising everyone nearby, declaring her feelings loudly and proudly for all guild members to hear. Jaluk prepared to travel to the Eastern Forest. He noted that his journey should proceed without any complications or issues. Melina strategized, planning to declare her interest early to rival women, shocking the other guild members who witnessed her boldness. Melina explained that Jaluk was the only remaining guild member who met her ideal husband criteria, as Eth had married recently. Melina asked if other senior staff members were interested in Jaluk. The girls reacted quickly, indicating they had learned their lesson. Melina noted that learning a lesson implied previous romantic interest in Jaluk. She reviewed her list of love rivals carefully. Melina admired Jaluk's qualities despite his unfriendly demeanor. She recognized he possessed traits many women sought, yet remained hard to read. Melina confessed she liked Jaluk's personality flaws. She considered them part of his charm, making him even more appealing in her eyes. Melina exclaimed that Jaluk had an extremely attractive face. She admired his appearance and expressed excitement with sparkling enthusiasm. Jaluk reminded her to ensure her feelings did not interfere with his work. Melina promised to be supportive while cheering him on. Jaluk Rulin walked through the quiet forest, enjoying the pleasant weather and the calm of his solo journey. Suddenly, a pack of gray wolves appeared, surrounding him and growling with menacing intent. Jaluk calmly summoned his magic, forming intricate protective barriers around his hands, preparing for the imminent threat. He unleashed a precise spell, shattering rocks in the path of the wolves, creating obstacles that slowed their advance. The wolves recoiled, giving Jaluk space to continue his peaceful exploration, undisturbed, as he moved forward with confidence. Jaluk faced the wolves calmly as they lunged, raising his hand to prepare a defensive move. Using the Ring of Shock, he struck precisely, sending the wolves flying backward with controlled force. The fallen wolves lay motionless, defeated, as Jaluk prepared to take what he needed to show his victory. He continued through the forest, observing the tranquil lake and the quiet wildlife around him. Jaluk reflected on the contrast between the peaceful countryside and the busy city, valuing his leisurely, self-sufficient life. Jaluk adjusted his lantern while reflecting on the challenges of a full countryside life without modern conveniences. He decided to spend his days in the quiet countryside to recover from the stress of city life. While walking, he noticed familiar surroundings and realized he kept encountering someone unexpectedly, though today they were absent. Jaluk carefully inspected the campsite, checking the area and preparing for any surprises. He sensed a presence nearby and cautiously approached, worrying that the gray wolves might have returned. Jaluk noticed a faint scent of blood and realized the wolves might have followed him from before. He turned sharply and saw a familiar figure approaching, recognizing a friend he hadn't expected to meet. They met again unexpectedly, laughing at their repeated coincidental encounters, despite not planning to meet. Jaluk's friend explained the strange feeling that brought him to the same place at the same time. Jaluk asked about Mariella, noticing her absence, while the friend reassured him, continuing their casual conversation in the quiet countryside. Jaluk realized Mariella had given him time alone on purpose, appreciating her understanding of his need for personal space. He reflected that a friend's advice had helped him enjoy the peaceful countryside without distraction. Jaluk offered his coffee grinder for sale, sparking immediate interest from his friend, who was eager to buy it. He explained he had both a manual and automatic grinder, prompting his friend to insist on buying both. They tested the grinders together, with the friend delighting in crushing the beans while Jaluk observed, content with their relaxed interaction. Jaluk and his friend continued grinding coffee beans together, sharing the task in companionable silence. The friend showed Jaluk the ring he always wore, a gift he had received from him long ago. Jaluk scolded him lightly for speaking in a way that sounded as if he had forced him to wear it, and his friend apologized. They discussed past events, with Jaluk reminding him not to keep thanking him for helping reach the wedding. The friend insisted on expressing gratitude again, and Jaluk reflected on how even the guild members had praised him similarly, showing the lasting impact of his actions. Jaluk's friend mentioned that Gawain likely rushed ahead and that they had been invited on a hunt together. They shared coffee, with the friend adding sugar, joking that the cost was on them for the morning gathering. Jaluk reminded his friend that any personal matters were between him and his party, not Jaluk. He offered a listening ear, assuring his friend that if he ever wanted to talk, he would support him. They enjoyed the coffee together, laughing as the friend admitted he would seek Jaluk's support when needed, appreciating the relaxed companionship. Jaluk's friend complimented his coffee, prompting Jaluk to smile as he handled a package carefully. Inside the box was a large, well-prepared chicken, leaving his friend amazed at the quality and effort. Jaluk explained he had smoked the chicken lightly to enhance the flavor, while his friend admired his dedication. They discussed how long Jaluk would stay and shared a meal, enjoying the peaceful countryside and camaraderie. His friend presented Cerberus wine along with other ingredients, ensuring their meal was both special and enjoyable. Jaluk and his friend prepared exotic meats, including orc king belly and sky serpent fin, ready for their meal. Jaluk's friend admired the meat, impressed by the variety and quality prepared for their countryside cooking session. Jaluk began grilling the monster meat while his friend requested some pieces to taste the natural flavors first. They worked side by side, the grill heating up as the aroma of the meat filled the air. Enjoying the shared task, Jaluk also unpacked wine and glasses, preparing for a proper meal with both flavor and presentation, ensuring the gathering was special. Jaluk's friend urged him to make a serving for him as well, teasing about starting without him. Jaluk sliced the large steaks with precision, ensuring everything was prepared perfectly for their meal. He poured a drink for his friend, timing it so the steak and beverage were ready together. Jaluk suggested they start with a plain piece of steak, setting the first bite in order. Both men enjoyed the meat, noting its fresh, satisfying texture, comparing it to biting into crisp vegetables as they savored their meal. Jaluk tasted the orc king meat, noting how sweet the fat was, and how it melted in his mouth without a gamey smell. He cheered, calling it fantastic, and planned to combine the orc king's flavor with whiskey for a unique taste. His friend eagerly wanted to try it as well, curious about Jaluk's culinary experiment. Jaluk explained the foaming drink, revealing it was carbonated water mixed with whiskey, leaving his friend surprised but willing to try. Both men sipped the drink, enjoying the unusual combination, with his friend's reaction showing delight at Jaluk's inventive pairing. Jaluk's friend discovered the fizzy whiskey drink, amazed at the tingling sensation and refreshing taste. Jaluk explained that mixing whiskey with carbonated water creates a highball, a light and enjoyable beverage. His friend asked where he could buy carbonated water, and Jaluk admitted it wasn't available in stores. Jaluk revealed he had stumbled upon a magical item that produced the sparkling drink, showing it to his friend. The friend reacted with excitement, astonished by the magical item and its ability to create such a unique beverage. Jaluk's friend pleaded to buy the magical item, astonished by its existence. But Jaluk refused. The friend offered to pay double, yet Jaluk firmly declined, determined not to sell it. Jaluk suggested trading some of the Orc King meat instead, and his friend reluctantly agreed. Seeking at least the carbonated water, they struck a deal, shaking hands, and ordered another round, continuing their enjoyable meal together. Jaluk prepared the sky serpent fin next, highlighting its beautiful pink cross-section, delighting his friend with the next delicacy. Jaluk tasted the sky serpent fin, noting it was chewier than expected but flavorful and light. He compared it with his friend, recognizing the lean quality and enjoying the different taste from the Orc King meat. His friend requested some of the roast chicken, and Jaluk suggested adding wasabi and soy sauce for extra flavor. They both eagerly dug in, savoring each bite of the well-prepared meats. Jaluk checked the smoked Orc King meat, realizing something went wrong, and his friend reacted with shock at the mistake. Jaluk's friend panicked, realizing he was out of highball, and insisted that it was barbaric to eat the delicious meat without alcohol, prompting a playful scolding from Jaluk. They sat by the lake, enjoying the view and reminiscing. Jaluk reflected that marriage hadn't changed his personality, maintaining his carefree and easygoing nature, while continuing to appreciate quiet moments with friends. Jaluk Rulin walked through the bustling streets, observing the daily life of the city. The sun began to set, casting long shadows over the cobblestones. He thought about his friend's plans, and realized his freedom was slightly limited by his wife, Mariella. He considered going to a bar but decided he was done for the day. Reflecting on the advantages and disadvantages of marriage, Jaluk acknowledged the comfort of evenings spent with his wife, but also the restrictions it brought. With sudden determination, Jaluk turned and headed home, moving quickly through the streets, unwilling to delay his return. His companion watched as he departed, disappointed by the change in plans. Jaluk's mind was on Elsie and the small joys he could still enjoy at home. Jaluk's companion confronted him, commenting on his obligations as a married man. Jaluk remained calm, acknowledging his wife's influence. Jaluk insisted it was a joke, while his friend decided to accompany him to the bar despite prior plans. They walked together, debating married life. Jaluk's companion expressed frustration, and Jaluk reflected on the difficulties of adjusting to marriage. At home, Mariella awaited, considering how upsetting it would be if her husband stayed out late after marriage. Eth's freedoms became limited, understanding responsibilities. Choices he could pursue were constrained, as he willingly refrained from acting on personal desires. Jaluk realized his choices influenced not only himself but also his friends. They observed his decisions carefully, mirroring his behavior. Eth walked alone, understanding that married friends' time must be respected. Unmarried companions should consider domestic responsibilities before inviting them out. Jaluk reflected on freedom. Marriage would bind him for decades, so he cherished being single, free, and independent from obligations. He entered a quiet bar greeted by a bartender. The evening began with calm anticipation of ordinary pleasures. The bartender noticed a new scent. Jaluk paused, observing her reaction, hinting that small surprises would shape their interaction tonight. Jaluk reassured the bartender about the faint odor. Only acute senses could notice it, so there was no cause for concern. The bartender asked for clarification about smoked food. Jaluk prepared to explain the cooking method, catching her attention. He described the process: food smoked using dried wood, the aroma-infused flavors, demonstrating a cooking technique uncommon in their region. The bartender listened carefully, considering this unusual culinary style. Jaluk noted its rarity and demonstrated polite confidence in his explanation. Finally, Jaluk offered the bartender a taste. She hesitated, curious to experience the smoked flavor he prepared, and suggested trying. Jaluk presented the smoked dish he prepared. The bartender noticed the exotic ingredients, curious if it included meat from unusual creatures. She commented that high-ranking adventurers rarely enjoyed meals together properly. Jaluk listened attentively, hoping the dish would change her perspective. The bartender sniffed the meat and took a bite. Jaluk observed her reaction closely, gauging her response to the flavors. Her expression brightened, approving the dish. She expressed her liking, confirming the smoked meat met her expectations and tasted delicious. Jaluk suggested pairing it with red wine or dry sake, considering complementary drinks to enhance the smoky aroma and flavor. Jaluk asked the bartender if she had sake. He hoped to complement the smoked dish with an appropriate drink. She explained that sake similar to Japan's originated in the Far East. Jaluk considered this cultural import carefully. Products from the Far East were recently introduced. Diplomatic relations allowed new imports, expanding Jaluk's options for beverages and experiences. He realized Elsie must have acquired a Far Eastern sake. Jaluk contemplated the timing and rarity of this imported product. The bartender confirmed she had sake. She presented the bottle to Jaluk, inviting him to enjoy it alongside his appetizers. Sake was poured into cups with care. The liquid reflected soft light, signaling the start of Jaluk's tasting experience. Jaluk asked the bartender about the brand and variety. He wanted to fully understand the drink before sampling it. She explained it was Haru no Megumi, a Daginjo shoe made from rice koji, and brewing alcohol. Jaluk considered how the rice polishing below 50% clarified the sake. It paired well with smoked dishes. Both raised their cups in silent acknowledgement. Jaluk prepared to enjoy the carefully paired flavors with the smoked meat. Jaluk sipped the sake. The dry, sharp taste followed the rice's sweetness, complementing the smoked meat perfectly. He and the bartender discussed how the sake's dry quality retained rice's mellow flavor, enhancing the overall tasting experience together. Jaluk combined the smoked meat and sake. The flavors merged subtly, creating a new taste richer than either alone. Both acknowledged the pairing's success. The bartender confirmed the sake complemented the smoked meat as expected, satisfying Jaluk's experiment. He thought of his absent friend Eth, imagining the sake's enjoyment shared. The moment highlighted his solitary yet peaceful evening. Jaluk asked where to buy smoked food. The bartender smiled, explaining she made them herself, unavailable anywhere else. He requested to purchase some for his shop. The bartender considered using luxurious ingredients unnecessary, offering guidance instead. She clarified the route to the sake shop. Jaluk listened carefully, noting her instructions and understanding there was a condition. She gave a written referral to the shop owner, ensuring Jaluk could buy smoked food without confusion. Jaluk acknowledged the instructions, planning to visit the shop tomorrow. He appreciated the clarity and simplicity of the solution. Before leaving, he asked what else could be smoked. The bartender encouraged him to explore and discover new creations. Jaluk Rulin walked through the bustling shopping district, observing the lively crowd and colorful stalls. He held a small map and carefully checked his route, determined to reach his destination without getting lost. After a few turns, he paused, realizing the streets were unusually empty. Doubt crept in as he questioned whether he had taken the wrong path. Finally, he spotted the building he had been searching for, a traditional structure standing quietly at the end of the lane. Inside, Jaluk examined exotic items from the Far East, appreciating their craftsmanship and considering which pieces would enhance his collection. Jaluk entered the store and noticed a display of swords. He paused, wondering why sake would be sold here. A woman greeted him warmly. She asked if he was interested in Far Eastern culture, drawing his attention to the exotic items. Jaluk explained he came for sake, and she clarified that special ingredients paired well with it. He carefully selected smoked cheese, thinking it would complement the drink. The woman tasted the cheese and smiled, confirming it was indeed fragrant and ideal with sake. Jaluk politely apologized for the misunderstanding, appreciating the guidance and the unexpected encounter in the shop. Jaluk introduced himself to the shop owner, Homura, who explained that the store was called Azumaya. Homura was surprised by Jaluk's noble status, and he politely reassured her that there was no need for formalities. She reacted with curiosity and slight clumsiness, realizing that nobles might visit the shop more often than she expected. Outside, they discussed why the shop was located in a remote area, despite its unique Far Eastern goods. Homura explained that trade was unstable, and that the shop was more of a personal hobby, not intended for many customers. Homura led Jaluk to a room in the back, indicating that this was where the sake was kept. Jaluk looked around in awe at the expansive collection of sake bottles, neatly arranged on shelves. Homura explained that he was only allowed in because Elsie had vouched for him, and normally strangers were not permitted. She asked if he was familiar with different types of sake, and Jaluk confidently said he knew enough to choose. Homura invited him to select the sake he wanted, and Jaluk eagerly prepared to make his choice from the collection. Jaluk studied the sake bottles, noticing that many had descriptions he had not seen before. He read the labels carefully, learning which types paired best with light or rich dishes, and which offered dry or smooth flavors. Some brands seemed familiar from his past life. But Jaluk realized their flavors were slightly different in this world. He examined bottles like Yusan Dai, Red Dragon, and Flower Diamond, appreciating their unique tastes and qualities. Homura observed him nervously, sensing his deep curiosity and attention to detail, and asked if something was the matter. Jaluk walked further into the sake room, ignoring Homura's concern as he focused on his selection. He confidently decided on a bottle, holding it up with determination. Homura questioned his choice, reminding him that there were plenty of other sake options, but Jaluk insisted on this one. He examined the rare bottle carefully, acknowledging its unique value in craftsmanship. Homura reacted in shock as Jaluk correctly guessed that the sake was extremely rare, surprising her with his keen observation. Homura was astonished as Jaluk selected 3 top-tier sake bottles on his first try, questioning whether he had enough money. Unfazed, Jaluk decided to buy 3 more bottles from other popular selections, surprising Homura even further. She protested, asking why he only chose the most well-known sake. But he remained cheerful and focused. She asked if he had traveled to the Far East, assuming he must be from there. But Jaluk explained he was native to the kingdom. He noticed a sake labeled Denshu and confidently chose 3 bottles, leaving Homura overwhelmed by his decisive knowledge. Jaluk requested 1 bottle of each sake, prompting Homura to nervously remark about how overwhelming his choices were. He added the first 2 bottles he had previously considered, further surprising her with his decisiveness. Jaluk then moved on to select sake cups, signaling that he was thorough in preparing for his tasting experience. He examined cups made by renowned potters, including Tokuri and Ochoko, carefully choosing the right vessels for the sake. Homura offered to show him sake glasses as well. While Jaluk considered all the options with calm precision, Jaluk examined the sake glasses, noting their transparency and how it allowed the color of the sake to be seen clearly. He observed the thin rims, appreciating the delicate craftsmanship and how it enhanced the tasting experience. Comparing 2 glasses, he noted the differences in rim thickness and how it would subtly affect the flavor perception. Jaluk decided to purchase Tokuri, Ochoko, and 2 sets of each glass type, carefully selecting the right tools for his sake. He then asked about other ingredients, eagerly collecting rice, soy sauce, and miso to complement his selections. Jaluk explained to Homura that the main ingredients of sake were rice, soy sauce, and miso, surprising her with his knowledge. He reflected on how long it had been since he last had Japanese cuisine, clarifying that he was native to the kingdom, not the Far East. He expressed interest in ordering pickles like nukazuke, prompting Homura to exclaim in surprise at his familiarity. Meanwhile, back home, other acquaintances prepared to leave, signaling the day's routine winding down. Jaluk packed a bag, planning to cook a special recipe for dinner, eager to apply the ingredients he had collected. Jaluk was asked if his reason for being late was related to something specific, prompting a curious look. He noted that Rouge was likely busy with her increased workload, especially dealing with wedding rings and the coffee mill. To raise morale, Jaluk mentioned he had brought souvenirs for his colleagues, showing his thoughtfulness. The 2 co-workers speculated it might be alcohol, surprised by the gesture as he revealed the bottles. Jaluk proudly explained that the bottles were sake, not just any alcohol, emphasizing their quality and uniqueness. Colleagues were astonished by the rare sake Jaluk had brought, curious if it was produced in the Far East. Jaluk explained that the shop did not welcome first-time customers, and the sake was not widely available yet, surprising them further. He handed a bottle to one colleague as a token of appreciation, showing his thoughtfulness and understanding of their recent struggles. The co-workers were overjoyed, expressing excitement and gratitude for the gift, lifting the mood in the room. Jaluk quietly left, satisfied that his gesture had brightened everyone's day and ensured their hard work was acknowledged. Jaluk began preparing dinner at home, carefully washing rice and ensuring it remained fluffy and well-shaped. He added miso into ingredient-filled tanjiru, preparing a hearty and flavorful soup. He combined a rolled omelet with kombu broth and added soy sauce, continuing to assemble the meal with precision. Jaluk plated the cucumber and turnip nukazuke he had obtained from Homura, pairing it with salt-grilled sabfena fish. Finally, the classic Japanese meal was complete, and Jaluk expressed gratitude before beginning to enjoy the food he had carefully prepared. Jaluk began eating his meal, savoring each bite of rice and soup with careful attention. He was overwhelmed by the nostalgic taste, remarking that the flavors reminded him of home, and his soul seemed to tremble with delight. The rolled omelet, salt-grilled fish, and tanjiru, with pickles harmonized perfectly with the rice, compelling him to keep eating without pause. Jaluk prepared a light evening drink, thoughtfully selecting sake from his collection to accompany the meal. He paired root vegetables wrapped in bacon and mushroom grated daikon with the drink, completing a carefully balanced and satisfying dinner. Jaluk held a sishu glass, appreciating how its clarity enhanced the experience of drinking sake. He sampled Jusan Dai sake, savoring its deep flavor, gentle fruity sweetness, and the aroma that enhanced the rice's savouriness. He thought about Elsie and decided to send her a batch of his best smoked foods as a thank you. Enjoying the moment quietly, Jaluk poured himself another drink, selecting from his collection of sake bottles, fully immersed in the taste and aroma of the drinks he had carefully chosen. Jaluk Rulin was reviewing paperwork in his office when a messenger arrived with a note from Lord Alto about a completed coffee mill. He adjusted his glasses and considered the message. He believed Alto could manage the task alone and initially saw no need to intervene. Still, he weighed the situation carefully. The delivery was meant for Count Blend, and perfection seemed important. Though reluctant, Jaluk recognized it as a task assigned to him. He reluctantly agreed to follow through and check on it. With a sigh, he prepared to leave his desk, muttering to himself as he headed out to ensure the delivery was satisfactory. Jaluk quietly approached a large mansion, aware that visits outside of meals were unusual, and opened the door cautiously. Inside, he startled the household staff who were busy with chores, creating a brief commotion as they reacted to his presence. A young girl ran toward him, calling him uncle, but paused nervously, wondering if he had forgotten her name. Jaluk smiled warmly and confirmed he remembered her, Sarah, and the girl's delight was immediate, brightening the room. He began asking about work matters, and an older man greeted him courteously, ready to discuss the updates from Alto, marking the start of Jaluk's tasks for the day. Jaluk asked about Alto's whereabouts and learned he was in the workshop, likely staying until evening. He realized spending the afternoon idle would be boring, while the young girl, Sarah, wanted a playmate. Deciding to keep her company, Jaluk chose to visit the workshop, surprising Sarah with his unexpected plan. Sarah expressed her frustration at being surrounded by her family, but feeling lonely, drawing Jaluk's attention to her need for companionship. Jaluk recalled his own childhood, remembering how he longed for a playmate like Sarah, and understood the importance of spending time with her. Jaluk requested to read a book, hoping to engage Sarah's curiosity while keeping her occupied. He reflected on his younger sister, recalling that she was troublesome but easy to manage, and used small incentives to encourage Sarah's focus. Jaluk presented a tray of smoked nuts to the older man, seeking feedback on whether they would be enjoyed. The older man agreed to try them, noting prior success with Lady Ilya, while Jaluk hoped Sarah would like the snack. Sarah's eyes lit up at the smell of the smoked nuts, and she eagerly expressed her desire to eat them, delighted by the treat. Jaluk agreed to a playful challenge with Sarah, escaping quickly as she ran toward him, and politely declined the carriage, choosing to walk. He arrived at the Lauren family workshop, observing artisans and apprentices of all ages performing research and testing magic tools. Jaluk noted the organized activity, seeing the workshop buzzing with workers, crafting and experimenting diligently. Sarah's friend warned Jaluk about the workshop's strict entry rules for non-family members. Concerned for his safety, Jaluk reassured them that he was part of the Rulin family, surprising the boy who had assumed he was a new employee and continued into the workshop. Jaluk arrived at the workshop and faced resistance from Kurt, who accused him of showing off and demanded he bring his boss along. Sarah intervened, explaining that they should treat Jaluk as a customer for now, calming Kurt and diffusing the tension. Kurt hesitated but agreed to follow Sarah's instructions, allowing Jaluk to proceed further into the workshop. A young worker carrying boxes was warned to watch his steps, and Jaluk quietly observed the busy apprentices. Suddenly, the worker recognized Jaluk and exclaimed in shock, realizing that the newcomer was actually Lord Jilk, surprising everyone nearby. The young apprentice quickly explained to Kurt that Jaluk was Lord Alto's older brother and the inventor of numerous magical tools, including refrigerators and stoves. Sarah and the other workers recognized Jaluk, realizing he was the famous figure often mentioned with awe in the workshop. Jaluk politely requested entry to meet Alto, showing no concern over the initial commotion, and the workers apologized for their earlier hesitation. As he walked through the workshop, other apprentices and staff glanced at him, impressed by his tall and composed appearance. The workshop quickly filled with excitement, with multiple workers greeting him warmly, calling out Big Brother in recognition of his status and contributions. Jaluk greeted an old acquaintance in the workshop, noting it had been about a year and a half since his last visit. He quickly shifted focus to business matters, discussing manpower and the number of employees to manage mass production efficiently. Another Rulin family member remarked on Jaluk's rare appearance, noting that it was the first time he had shown up at the family workshop in a long while. The workers turned to watch him, astonished by his presence, some showing visible admiration and surprise. Jaluk's sibling nudged him, remarking that everyone was waiting for him to speak. highlighting the respect and attention he commanded. Jaluk cleared his throat and introduced himself as Alto's older brother, acknowledging the potential disruption his presence might cause. He addressed the workers, noting that those at the Rulin family workshop were likely magic tool craftsmen or apprentices. Jaluk instructed them to create magic tools that make life easier, emphasizing the importance of considering practical solutions for daily challenges. He encouraged the staff to use their knowledge and collaboration to turn innovative ideas into reality, even if the concepts seemed unusual. The workers reacted enthusiastically, applauding Jaluk and showing admiration for his leadership and vision, though he quietly thought their reaction was a bit exaggerated. Jaluk expressed that he had no interest in how others perceived him, yet his words still impressed his companion. He emphasized the importance of creating magic tools to make life easier, advising that more subordinates might be needed to accomplish the work efficiently. Jaluk reflected that if someone couldn't reach a high standard, they weren't worth discussing further. He assessed an apprentice's skills, noting his talent with magic stones and stabilization, but also recognized his limitations as a beginner. Jaluk evaluated the apprentice's magic circuits and efficiency, concluding that while talented, his level of expectation remained as high as ever. Jaluk confirmed that there were no issues with his prepared goods, easing his assistant's concerns. He was asked why he seemed nervous over a simple task, while he reassured that it was minor and under control. Jaluk assigned 30 sets of goods to be delivered to Earl Blend, organizing the logistics with calm efficiency. Fievel arrived, seeking consultation with Jaluk, and he welcomed her and politely ready to assist. Ilya appeared unexpectedly, teasing Fievel while Jaluk internally wondered why Ilya was present, noticing her playful annoyance. Fievel and Ilya brought the wedding ring prototypes to Jaluk for his evaluation and feedback. Jaluk carefully examined the rings, distinguishing the designs intended for men and women. He immediately recognized the enhancements Ilya had added, including a magic shield, enhancement, and resistance to abnormal conditions. Jaluk accurately identified that the mismatched rings were crafted by Ilya, impressing the others with his insight. He explained that he could understand the maker's habits and style, just by examining their work, leaving Ilya surprised. Jaluk observed that assembling magical circuits in small objects was inherently difficult, noting that this was likely Ilya's specialty. Fievel asked if there were other distinctive features in Ilya's work, showing curiosity about her techniques. Jaluk explained that while Ilya excelled at compact designs, her large-scale circuit work was less careful, and her focus on design sometimes wasted potential. Ilya became frustrated at the critique, expressing annoyance at Jaluk's observations. Jaluk remained calm, and Fievel smiled, observing the dynamic between the siblings and the accuracy of his evaluation. Fievel and Ilya were surprised to learn that Jaluk had always been observing Ilya's work, which touched her unexpectedly. Ilya acknowledged that Jaluk's recognition was enough to make her happy, and they decided to proceed with the customer's order. Jaluk noticed that Fievel was enjoying the process, and he realized her design sense differed from his, but complimented the work. A knock at the door revealed that Jaluk's father had arrived, confirming that handing the project over was the right decision. Jaluk hurried to tell Alto to inform the others that he was leaving, surprising his father and others at home. Jaluk jokingly suggested that the visitor stay over for the day, but quickly realized that such a proposal wouldn't work on him. He walked through the street, relieved that the mill's production was finished, intending to take it easy that evening, only to be confronted by Ilya, who shouted in frustration at his escape. Jaluk Rulin walked calmly through the city streets. A noblewoman, clearly frustrated, pointed at him with anger. He noticed a familiar scene, and realized the shout came from someone he recognized. Sweat formed on his brow as he assessed the situation. Jaluk casually pointed out to the woman that her orchestra friends were waving behind her. She turned, slightly confused, trying to understand. Before she could react, Jaluk dashed away with agility, leaving her flustered and yelling after him. The woman shouted in fury, demanding he stop immediately, but Jaluk's smirk showed he had already vanished into the streets. Jaluk ran swiftly through the streets, the noblewoman chasing closely behind. She was determined not to let him escape. He glanced at the nearby apartment building, hoping it could provide a brief refuge. She followed relentlessly, closing the distance. The noblewoman lunged at Jaluk, grabbing him in an attempt to stop his escape. He struggled lightly, calculating his next move. Jaluk acknowledged her speed with surprise. She smiled, confident, showing her athletic skill. They both paused, breathing heavily. Jaluk teased her gently, noting her stamina, while she admitted she had been keeping fit despite her music-focused life. The noblewoman glared at Jaluk, calling him an adventurer. He calmly explained he traveled outside the royal capital regularly. She smirked, teasing him about his rank as a solo adventurer, implying it wasn't high. Jaluk smiled, confidently, noting that even as a B-rank solo, his achievements were respectable, surprising her. She paused, realizing that Jaluk's combined skills as a magic tool artisan and adventurer made him flawless in her eyes. The noblewoman regained her composure and declared she had come to complain, standing firm as Jaluk listened, a faint smile on his face. The noblewoman yelled at Jaluk, blaming him for a terrible situation caused by introducing Viscount Aquinas. Jaluk followed her down the hall, trying to calm her, while she explained she had been treated like a dress-up doll. She expressed her frustration, claiming she had been dragged around all day, and Jaluk listened carefully. He asked for confirmation, and she insisted that the ordeal lasted the entire day, emphasizing her exhaustion. Jaluk smiled reassuringly, telling her he wasn't mocking her, and that, in his view, it was a positive outcome despite her obvious irritation. The noblewoman questioned how Leonard could like her despite being dragged around, while Jaluk assured her it was a positive sign. Jaluk explained that Leonard often turns women into dress-up dolls, but most are rejected quickly. He clarified that passing Leonard's strict judgment meant she was seen as worthy, while superficial charm alone wouldn't suffice. The noblewoman listened carefully, surprised, and Jaluk encouraged her to ask others about Leonard's reputation if she doubted him. Finally, Jaluk noted that he had anticipated Leonard would take a liking to her, at least to some degree, leaving her thoughtful but reassured. The noblewoman hesitated, embarrassed, unable to fully accept Jaluk's words about Leonard's approval. Jaluk remained calm, telling her that her personal feelings didn't concern him, and that just knowing Leonard took a liking to her was enough. He decided to leave, mentioning that he would take the next day off to relax alone. Jaluk settled into his quiet home, enjoying solitude, reading a book, and sipping coffee in peace. He looked out the window at the nice weather, planning to go for a walk and do some shopping, appreciating the comfort of a peaceful day alone. Jaluk walked through a bustling market, considering whether to grab a bite before shopping. He decided against a restaurant, scanning food stalls for something light to eat. Jaluk ordered yakitori skewers of negama and sasiri, evaluating the flavors, despite the unconventional preparation. He noticed the simplicity of seasoning, just salt and pepper, and admired the confidence of the stall owner. Taking a bite, Jaluk's expression turned to shock and disgust, as he realized the meat was unexpectedly fishy, ruining the snack. Jaluk grimaced as he inspected the yakitori, noticing issues like insufficient seasoning, tendons left in the meat, and poor reheating. He approached the shop owner, criticizing the low-quality meat and sloppy cooking. The owner responded nonchalantly, suggesting the bad quality was just random misfortune, and dismissing it as normal. Jaluk became frustrated, explaining that the meat was essentially a rip-off and unfit for eating. The shop owner calmly suggested that if Jaluk was unhappy, he could make it himself, leaving Jaluk speechless at the blunt response. Jaluk realized arguing with the shop owner would not improve the yakitori, and that it was a total waste of time. He decided there was no choice but to cook it himself to ensure it met his standards. Determined, he declared it was time to go home and make yakitori properly. Back at his residence, Jaluk completed prep work on the rockbird chickens, readying them for skewering. Finally, he began the process of skewering the meat, focused and determined to get it right this time. Jaluk began with the skin, wrapping it smoothly around the skewer and securing it tightly at both ends, following a method he learned in his previous life. He examined the finished skewers, surprised that the work took more effort than expected. Piercing the meat to keep the skin stretched, Jaluk admired the clean, beautiful arch of the skewers. He carefully prepared the neck meat, ensuring that overhanging portions would not droop or burn during cooking. Next, he moved on to the heart, meticulously handling each piece to maintain the quality of his yakitori. Jaluk pressed the meat with his thumb, carefully piercing it without letting the skewer poke through, aligning the ends for a neat appearance. He moved on to the negama skewer, placing each piece precisely on the skewer. Next, he skewered the gizzard at the end, ensuring every piece was secure, with all pieces on skewers. Jaluk surveyed his work, satisfied that the preparation was complete. He then prepared the grill, ready to cook the skewers perfectly, determined to achieve the ideal yakitori. Jaluk began grilling the skewers over charcoal, soaking them in a sauce he made from the seasonings Hamura gave him. Although time-consuming, he found enjoyment in carefully tending the meat as it cooked. He reflected that wholehearted effort in cooking makes food taste better, unlike with people, where devotion may not be returned. Jaluk remembered the stall owner taking money for poor quality, half-cooked meat, and felt it was unforgivable. Noticing the ventilation was inadequate, he decided to open a window, ensuring the smoke wouldn't overwhelm him while grilling. Jaluk realized the smoke from grilling had stuck to his shirt, and decided to change into home clothes. He opened windows and hung his clothes outside to air, letting the smoke dissipate. Returning to the grill, he checked the skewers, noting that they were cooking perfectly over the charcoal. The savory aroma of the sauce and meat juices filled the kitchen, irresistible despite the lingering smoke. Suddenly, the noblewoman appeared, and Jaluk, frustrated that his perfect preparation was being interrupted, asked why she had come. The noblewoman complained about the intense smell of grilled food spreading through the house, reaching her laundry. Jaluk acknowledged the situation, realizing the odor was strong and extensive, and offered to cover any cleaning costs. She insisted it wasn't necessary but warned him to stop before neighbors or others started complaining. Jaluk remained focused, determined to finish grilling the yakitori properly before starting to eat. Satisfied with his work, he reflected that by eating the yakitori he prepared with his own hands, he could fully enjoy his day and move forward into tomorrow. Jaluk and the noblewoman struggled briefly, each insisting on their own stance regarding the smell and disruption. Jaluk paused, realizing a solution was needed, and motioned her to wait. He returned with a tray, presenting the perfectly prepared yakitori for her inspection. The noblewoman looked at the skewers in surprise, curious and slightly hesitant about what he had prepared. Jaluk explained that the tray contained yakitori made from rock birds, arranged with skin, heart, gizzard, neck meat, and negama, each properly seasoned with salt and sauce, showcasing the care he put into the meal. Jaluk offered the plate of freshly grilled yakitori to the noblewoman as compensation for the smoke and disruption, insisting she take it. She accepted, holding the plate carefully, while Jaluk returned to the grill to finish cooking a few more skewers for himself. The noblewoman looked at the tray of skewers with wide eyes, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Realizing the care and effort Jaluk had put into preparing the yakitori herself, appreciating the skill behind each perfectly arranged piece. Jaluk Rulin woke in his luxurious mansion, the morning sunlight spilling across the quiet halls. He stretched lazily in bed, feeling he had slept far longer than usual. Reluctant to start the day, deciding to remain inside, he rose slowly, moving through his room while ignoring the outside world. Facing a massive pile of laundry accumulated over the week, Jaluk sighed, realizing chores could not wait. He activated his magic-powered washing machine, relieved at its convenience, and carefully sorted the clothes to avoid mistakes. Jaluk added the special detergent to the washing machine and pressed the button, initiating the magic water stone. Water flowed over the clothes, cleaning them effortlessly, but he still felt housework was a hassle. He decided to invest in the newest model with a dryer, using his savings, which reduced his family's laundry expenses. Jaluk reflected on how magical tools had changed the labor market, leaving some workers without jobs. Watching the machine operate, he felt a mix of satisfaction and guilt for the impact of his innovations. Jaluk relaxed on the couch, finishing a romance novel as the evening sunlight filtered through the windows. The story of a shy couple discovering their feelings captured her attention, leaving her wanting love like theirs. She held the book close, smiling wistfully, imagining what it would be like to experience that kind of romance. Sitting quietly, Jaluk reflected on how reality differed from stories, feeling the limitations of adult life. Looking toward her violin and music stand, she resolved that her life would focus on music, not love, finding meaning in her passion. Jaluk decided it was time to bring in the laundry, stretching and preparing for the chore. As she opened the door, smoke poured in, catching her off guard and causing alarm. Fearing a fire, she hurried inside, scanning the area carefully while her heart raced. Investigating, Jaluk noticed the strong smell and smoke coming from the laundry area. Realizing something unusual had happened, she lifted a piece of clothing and found a large piece of roasted meat caught in the laundry. Stunned by the bizarre discovery, Jaluk realized she had been hit by the savory meat in the laundry and now had to wash everything again. Smoke spread through the mansion as she rushed to locate the source, determined to figure out the cause. Her frustration grew, her expression fierce as she confronted the mess and the lingering smell. A man blocked her path in the hallway, trying to intervene, but Jaluk refused to let it slide. Despite the savory scent tempting her, she steeled herself, preparing to deal with the chaos and finish the laundry properly. Jaluk opened the door, realizing she should have eaten lunch earlier to prepare for the unexpected chaos. A man presented her with a plate of yakitori, carefully explaining the different parts and seasoning. Jaluk hesitated, worried it was charity, but the aroma tempted her despite her pride. He insisted it was compensation for the trouble caused, offering the plate sincerely. Reluctantly, Jaluk accepted the food, vowing to wash the plate before returning it next time. Jaluk examined the yakitori, thinking about the unusual choice of rock bird meat compared to the usual expensive ingredients. She reflected on the man's past preferences, wondering why he chose cheaper meat this time, despite previously eating dragon meat. Jiluk took her first bite, deciding to share her thoughts on the taste next time they met. The flavor surprised her, and she exclaimed in delight, enjoying the unexpected deliciousness. The crispy, juicy yakitori exceeded her expectations, perfectly complementing her meal and leaving her satisfied. Jiluk poured herself a glass of ale, excited to see how well it paired with the yakitori. She examined the heart portion, noting its juicy texture that reminded her of a small steak. Next she tried the gizzard, appreciating its unique crunch and how it complemented the salty seasoning. The sasiri and negama skewers followed, each bite offering springy, flavorful meat and char-grilled green onion, satisfied. Jiluk realized she had finished the entire plate, pleasantly surprised by the unexpected deliciousness of the meal. Jiluk reflected on her aristocratic upbringing, realizing this yakitori was the most delicious chicken she had ever tasted. She examined the meat carefully, questioning whether it was truly from a rock bird. The skewers were tender, with a well-balanced taste of umami and fat, far better than previous rock bird dishes she'd eaten. She acknowledged the effort put into the preparation, the proper grilling, and the flavorful sauce that elevated the dish. Jiluk wondered if Jilk was one of those men who could actually cook, impressed by the craftsmanship. Jiluk admired the man who had prepared the yakitori, noting his good family background, income, appearance, and professional skill. She rested on the couch, reflecting on the day and how impressive the cooking had been. Looking out at her mansion at night, she thought about the contrast between his skills and his personality. Jilk, holding a glass of ale, felt satisfied with his decision to cook himself, proud of the meal's success and flavor. Jiluk Rulin examined the magical artifacts laid out before him. A lightning lance, a blue flame protection stone, and a fairy's ring gleamed with power, each promising unique abilities to any skilled user. At the relic shop, Jiluk discussed the artifacts with the shopkeeper. He carefully considered their properties, showing his usual calm and analytical demeanor. The shopkeeper noted that most customers didn't regularly buy such expensive tools. Jiluk explained he came weekly, collecting the most intriguing artifacts for his personal use. The conversation continued, as Jiluk revealed he would visit every day if he could, but his noble duties often kept him busy. Finally, his attention settled on one particular artifact, rumored to be cursed. Despite its dangers, Jiluk was intrigued, knowing its potential power could be mastered with skill. Jiluk struggled with the idea of using a cursed artifact. Remembering past stress and sleepless nights from powerful tools, he doubted his ability to handle it safely. The shopkeeper presented the black tentacle gauntlet and the staff of the Undying. Jiluk inspected them carefully, weighing their power against their danger. Outside, the artifact's effects became clear. The staff raised low-ranking undead, while the gauntlet unleashed writhing black tentacles, proving their dangerous nature. Jiluk realized such items required official reporting. Their power and unpredictability were too extreme to manage alone. He studied the artifacts, noting the need to notify the authorities when handling cursed tools, ensuring both safety and responsibility. Jiluk learned that using cursed artifacts without permission could draw suspicion. Officials required advance requests to avoid complications, even for collectors. He reflected on past incidents where collectors had died from curses. Some cursed tools acted independently, making them difficult to store or manage safely. At the shop, Jiluk reserved the artifacts in advance, paying the necessary fees. The shopkeeper acknowledged his careful approach, noting his knowledge of other collectors. Jiluk explained he planned to visit multiple shops, exploring rare tools systematically, showing his dedication to his collection. The shopkeeper agreed to hold one artifact exclusively for him, trusting Jiluk's judgment and ensuring the cursed item wouldn't fall into careless hands. Jiluk arrived at a new warehouse, carrying a large crate filled with artifacts. The weight hinted at the treasures within. Inside, Guan, the caretaker, recognized him immediately. He sat chained and tired, unimpressed with Jiluk's frequent visits. Jiluk found the cursed artifacts he had been seeking. He scolded Guan jokingly about his poor customer service as he examined the dangerous tools. Jiluk confirmed the West District Treasure Shop had been selling cursed tools. He noted their potential risks, but also their value for study. Guan sighed as Jiluk confidently handled the artifacts. Even in the presence of dangerous curses, Jiluk's calm demeanor ensured nothing would go wrong. Jiluk reviewed the cursed artifacts again. The gauntlet that produced black tentacles, and the staff, summoning low-tier undead demanded careful handling. In the warehouse, the artifacts moved and rattled on their own. The noise startled the caretaker, Guan, but Jiluk remained calm. Jiluk reminded Guan to maintain order. Despite the chaos, he observed the artifacts' behavior, noting which ones required caution in storage and use. He inquired about new stock, Guan revealed a top-grade magical artifact had just arrived, capturing Jaluk's full attention. Excited, Jaluk asked to see it immediately, knowing rare items often appeared briefly and needed prompt action to secure them safely. Jaluk convinced Guan to reveal the new top-grade artifact, showing his determination to study and handle it properly. Guan reluctantly encouraged any interested adventurers to purchase the artifact, warning of its dangers while Jaluk observed carefully. Jaluk paused, noting that security might be a concern, but he remained confident in managing the artifact safely. He insisted on seeing the artifact immediately, urging Guan to act quickly despite the B-rank adventurer stepping in temporarily. Guan agreed, leading Jaluk inside to examine the artifact, ensuring it stayed in capable hands and would not be mishandled. Jaluk leaned over the counter, curious about a mysterious device Guan revealed from behind a crate. Guan introduced it as the Reflected World, a magic artifact capable of capturing scenery through its lens. He demonstrated the artifact, showing that looking through the small hole and pressing a button allowed one to see the reflected scene. Pressing the button recorded the view onto special paper, producing a tangible snapshot of the captured scene. Jaluk examined the image, impressed by the artifact's craftsmanship and realizing its potential as both a tool and a masterpiece of magical invention. Guan presented the camera artifact, a Polaroid-style device that could instantly develop photos, catching Jaluk's attention. Jaluk carefully held the camera and asked for permission to test it, eager to understand its functions. Guan observed Jaluk, noting how his posture appeared precise and sharp while handling the artifact. Jaluk adjusted the camera, matching Guan's instructions, ensuring he captured the scene correctly and effectively. He discovered that the camera had both close-up and long-distance lenses, functioning just as the cameras he remembered from his past life. Jaluk examined the developed photograph, impressed by the Polaroid-style camera's immediate output. He questioned how the film mechanism worked inside the artifact. Guan explained that normal film development took time, but the artifact allowed instant projection and printing, sparking Jaluk's curiosity about its internal structure. As Jaluk adjusted the camera, a sudden light emitted from the artifact, startling him and making him wonder about its hidden powers. Guan clarified that a magic stone within the camera, shining in 7 colors, was essential for the projection. The stone absorbed the user's magical energy and transferred the captured image onto paper, revealing the intricate magical engineering behind the device. Jaluk examined the Polaroid-style camera, curious about its mysterious material and internal workings. Guan warned that the artifact might deteriorate with use, and if its energy source ran out, it could become unusable. Jaluk asked the price. Guan explained it was very expensive, emphasizing the artifact's rarity and value. Guan described the artifact as retrieved by a top-level adventurer with astonishing features and remarkable usefulness. He clarified that, despite being a consumable in a sense, it held unmatched functionality and magical engineering. Finally, Guan revealed the cost, 300 million, leaving Jaluk awed by the artifact's incredible worth and power. Jaluk entered the workshop and examined a rare magical device. The craftsman, stern and cautious, announced its price, 300 million. Jaluk calmly held the device and agreed without hesitation. His confident smile revealed his certainty. The craftsman was shocked, realizing the price could build 5 mansions in the capital. He struggled to understand Jaluk's decisiveness. Jaluk inspected the item further, noting it was cheaper than expected for a consumable. He considered its potential uses carefully. The craftsman, still doubtful, questioned whether Jaluk truly intended to buy it. Jaluk remained composed, ready to claim the item. Jaluk held the magical camera with admiration, ready to purchase it despite its high cost. He felt no hesitation, recognizing its unique power. He walked through the town square, observing families and citizens enjoying a peaceful day. The city felt alive and welcoming. Jaluk began experimenting with the camera, adjusting angles and capturing buildings and people from different perspectives. He focused on a fountain, discovering a perfect angle that highlighted its beauty. Lying on the ground to get a low-angle shot, he captured the scene enthusiastically, while passers-by looked on curiously at his unusual method. Jaluk continued experimenting with the magical camera while lying in the plaza, drawing curious glances from passers-by. 2 bystanders teased him about being on a date, but Jaluk calmly dismissed their assumptions, focusing on his photography. He explained his unusual position in the center of the plaza was to capture the perfect shot, while others observed him suspiciously. Despite the suspicious looks from townspeople, Jaluk remained composed, treating them with mild indifference as he adjusted his camera. Finally, he began photographing friends who approached, instructing them to cooperate, though they protested, amused by his quirky dedication to capturing the scene perfectly. Jaluk explained to his friends that the magical camera made him appear strange because people did not understand it. He introduced the device as the reflected world and instructed Katerina to stand in a suitable position for demonstration. Katerina reluctantly obeyed, embarrassed by the unusual setup in the middle of the plaza. Jaluk encouraged her to strike a modeling pose. Despite her discomfort, Katerina tried posing as instructed, while Jaluk guided her carefully to capture the best angle. Jaluk enthusiastically took the shot, surprising Katerina and prompting her exclamation, though he remained fully focused on mastering his magical camera. Jaluk was surprised when the magical camera produced its first photo, capturing Katerina perfectly within the scene. Katerina and Leonard examined the picture, astonished that the camera captured both her and the surrounding fountain and sky so clearly. Jaluk explained the camera's function. It could capture scenes instantly and allow clothes to be placed on the model digitally for design purposes. Katerina realized how this tool could simplify fashion demonstrations and make outfits easier for customers to visualize. Leonard was shocked at the camera's cost of $300 million, but Katerina eagerly offered to buy it, fascinated by its unique abilities. Leonard offered 600 million solos to buy the magical camera, but Jaluk refused, insisting it was not for sale. Katerina reacted dramatically, frustrated by Jaluk's refusal, shouting that she wanted the camera desperately. Determined, Katerina commanded Jaluk to save a picture of the clothes she wore so they could be sold, taking control of the situation. Jaluk observed the practical benefit. Photographing people freely would allow him to make photography a habit. A clear win-win scenario. Katerina happily declared that they would resume shopping while Jaluk agreed, and together they continued their day, combining business and fun seamlessly. Katerina asked Jaluk about keeping all the outfits she tried that day, insisting on saving them for later. Jaluk guided her through a clothing store, pointing out specific outfits to try on while she followed dutifully. Katerina saluted dramatically, acknowledging Jaluk's instructions as she prepared to model the chosen clothes. Jaluk preferred to select his own attire, while Leonard suggested outfits for him, showing how Katerina was growing accustomed to this new routine. After changing, Katerina announced she was ready, and Jaluk immediately prepared to photograph her, capturing her final look with focus and precision. Jaluk reviewed the photos carefully, while Katerina and Leonard looked on. He analyzed the images to ensure every detail was captured. The team prepared for the next photoshoot. Katerina posed confidently, and Jaluk adjusted the camera for optimal framing. Jaluk took note of how the photos could be used for reference and security, making sure they were handled responsibly. He supervised Katerina's journey home, ensuring her safety while maintaining control over the camera and images. Before leaving, Jaluk made a final check of the camera and photos, confirming everything was complete and properly documented. Jaluk handed out several printed photos to Katerina and Leonard, making sure everyone had a copy from the previous day's session. Katerina examined the photos carefully, surprised by the clarity and detail, while Jaluk ensured no payment was needed. She discovered images of herself and others in the prints, showing expressions and outfits from the previous day's events. Katerina reacted dramatically, startled by the unexpected photos, while Jaluk explained they were normal captures from their journey in the carriage. The next day, Jaluk returned to the workshop alone, noticing it was empty, and preparing to continue work on his photography projects. Jaluk discovered a written note on his desk, realizing it was from Rouge with instructions for the day. He read the note carefully, learning that Rouge and Tristan had gone to the magic tool store and left tasks for him. Jaluk prepared for work on the coffee mills, enjoying a moment of peace and focus before starting his tasks. While working, a visitor appeared unexpectedly, catching Jaluk off guard as he stumbled in surprise. The visitor handed Jaluk an invitation to a coffee tasting event, informing him that he, as the maker, should attend. A messenger informed Jaluk that his attendance was requested at the coffee tasting event, and the Lord specifically wanted him present. Jaluk reviewed the invitation and reflected on his role in connecting Alto and Count Blend, considering how he would observe the barista's actions. He confirmed his participation with the messenger, noting the event would provide insight into the barista's work while fulfilling the Lord's request. Sitting quietly afterward, Jaluk sipped coffee and contemplated the complexity of human relationships, feeling the weight of social expectations and responsibilities. Jaluk Rulin quietly returned to his mansion, noticing the delivery crates stacked at the entrance. He carefully arranged the packages and prepared for the arrival of his companions. Alto and Katerina arrived, visibly exhausted from their journey. They carried bags and supplies, clearly worn out by their long day of work in the city. Jaluk observed them calmly, noting their fatigue. He commented on how drained they looked, while they admitted they had been working tirelessly. Alto and Katerina explained their tasks, visiting every magic tool shop in the royal capital to teach customers how to operate their devices. Repetition had worn them down. Jaluk offered them coffee to refresh themselves, knowing they still had more shops to visit the next day. Despite their exhaustion, he ensured they were cared for before resting. Jaluk Rulin raised his hands, trying to calm Alto and Katarina. Their sudden outburst revealed just how ignored his initial comments had been. He explained that coffee contained special components and that some people's bodies were incompatible with excessive consumption. Katarina appeared surprised, hearing this for the first time. Jaluk advised them to limit themselves to 2 or 3 cups a day and to stop drinking immediately if they felt unwell. Katarina panicked, realizing she had to revisit the shops and re-explain everything tomorrow because she had overlooked the warnings. Jaluk listened calmly as they stressed over their responsibilities, acknowledging the hard work required while gently reminding them of preventive care. Jaluk Rulin considered the plan, suggesting they involve Rondel for support. Katarina nodded, seeing that it would make their work much easier. Alto reminded Katarina that she was already swamped, and she quickly instructed Jaluk to ask Rondel for help, despite his own busy schedule. Jaluk hesitated but agreed, knowing Rondel was closest to the task at hand. He sipped his coffee, preparing for the conversation. He observed that both Katarina and Alto were genuinely exhausted, recognizing the strain of their responsibilities and their tireless work. Jaluk prepared to leave, stating he had finished his work for the day. Katarina hesitated, indicating she still had tasks to manage, while he calmly departed. Jaluk Rulin reviewed the reports brought by Katarina, noting that multiple magic tool shops had placed additional requests for supplies. He examined the new numbers in detail, realizing that every shop was ordering more than double compared to the previous batch. Katarina explained that the shopkeepers who were satisfied with the previous units wanted to recommend them to other customers, ensuring all additional stock would be purchased. Jaluk considered the potential risks if the products failed to sell but remained calm, thinking through the logistics carefully. He recognized the exhaustion on Katarina and Alto's faces and resolved to ask Rondel for support, acknowledging the heavy workload they had handled. Jaluk Rulin prepared to leave for the day, having completed the mill in advance, while Katarina noticed something unusual about his demeanor. Katarina informed Jaluk about new orders from multiple magic tool shops, emphasizing the increased workload they faced. Jaluk examined the reports, shocked to see that every shop was ordering more than double the previous amount. Katarina assured him that all additional stock would be purchased, but warned of potential issues if anything went wrong. Jaluk thoughtfully considered the situation, evaluating how to manage the orders and logistics efficiently, while Katarina awaited his decision on handling the additional units. Rondel carefully prepared coffee, reflecting on the effort he had put into supporting Jaluk and the team. He considered the low price of the grinders and the careful planning required to manage orders efficiently. Alto entered the room unexpectedly, catching Jaluk and Katarina mid-discussion, as they evaluated whether the additional stock was manageable. Alto observed the situation, noting the ongoing work and the tension in handling the extra orders. Jaluk thoughtfully reviewed the reports, while Katarina requested him to decide quickly on how to handle the additional stock. Alto explained his plan to consult Jaluk about Count Blend's tea party, signaling the next set of responsibilities that required careful coordination among the team. Jaluk Rulin finished his work and suggested continuing the discussion at a relaxing CA surprising Alto and Katarina with his unusual calmness. The brothers entered the cafe, observing the familiar environment and confirming it as Jaluk's preferred spot for meetings. Alto introduced himself to Rondel, apologizing for any trouble caused by Jaluk's prior activities, establishing courtesy and respect. Rondel welcomed them warmly, explaining his role in running the cafe, while acknowledging Jaluk's support. They all sat at the counter together, and Rondel noted the unusual sight of the two brothers side by side, ready to discuss their next steps calmly. Alto remarked on the similarities in hair and eye color between him and Jaluk Rulin, clarifying that they were not twins. Jaluk reflected on the cafe where he first had coffee in the royal capital, and where he had met Noid preparing to order for the group. Alto suggested having coffee before attending Count Blend's tea party, prompting Jaluk to acknowledge the practical advice. Alto asked if Jaluk had received an invitation to the tea party, and Jaluk confirmed, noting his strategy and planning. Rondel arrived with the invitation, prompting Jaluk to decline attendance due to work obligations, while the others reacted with surprise at his decision. Jaluk Rulin explained that the previous mill delivery had been rushed, and that they had earned a favor from Count Blend, making it acceptable to miss the tea party. Alto urged Jaluk to attend anyway, emphasizing that it would be easier to manage things in person. Rondel noted that as head of the family, Jaluk's decision would determine the success or failure of their plans, acknowledging the weight of responsibility. Jaluk remained cautious, prioritizing preparation over social obligations, mindful of the major figures involved. Alto insisted on helping and encouraged Jaluk to attend the tea party, showing his dedication to supporting his brother and managing the extra coffee mill orders. Jaluk Rulin reviewed the incoming orders, noting that 150 coffee mill requests had arrived, and recognized this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Alto volunteered to help, assuring Jaluk that the staff and prior experience would make the task manageable, bringing relief and confidence to the team. Alto enjoyed his coffee while Rondell served it, observing the process with careful attention. Alto was impressed by Jaluk's skill in handling the orders efficiently, realizing the quality surpassed his own previous attempts. Rondell decided to attend Count Blend's tea party, and the brothers prepared for the event, acknowledging the responsibilities and collaboration required to handle both work and social obligations. Jaluk Rulin was surprised to learn that Rondell already knew about his plan to attend Count Blend's tea party, realizing the careful attention of his allies. Rondell explained that it was an honor to provide delicious coffee for the upcoming tea party, reinforcing his role and dedication. Jaluk reflected that he would get to enjoy the coffee during the tea party, appreciating the effort and timing of Rondell's preparations. Rondell confirmed that the official sale of the coffee mill would begin in 3 weeks, allowing proper planning and coordination. Rondell arranged to start selling coffee beans alongside the mill and entrusted Jaluk with preparation, ensuring a smooth rollout while managing responsibilities efficiently. Jaluk Rulin requested Rondell's help for another task, seeking guidance on teaching coffee basics to the magic tool shop staff. He explained the lack of skilled workers and offered to compensate Rondell for his expertise, ensuring the smooth rollout of the mills. Rondell gladly agreed, acknowledging that his assistance would help build momentum for sales and ensure the extra orders were handled efficiently. Alto steadily built a track record of sales, managing additional orders and benefiting from the Rondell effect to expand their coffee business. Finally, the brothers prepared for the day of Count Blend's tea party, completing their preparations and arriving on time to manage responsibilities and enjoy the event. Alto encouraged Jaluk to hurry and join the carriage, eager to proceed despite the upcoming responsibilities. Jaluk expressed concern about maintaining composure, observing his brother's excitement while anticipating the event ahead. The brothers arrived at the city streets, checking on the progress of the extra coffee mills to ensure all preparations were complete. Alto performed a final check on the deliveries, confirming that everything was in order and that there would be no issues. Alto assured Jaluk that he would represent the Rulin family and manage sales, personally, reinforcing the trust and responsibility entrusted to him. Jaluk Rulin observed the tea party venue, noting that Alto had overseen the preparations, giving him confidence in the setup and reducing his worries. The brothers approached the party, observing other attendees and assessing the arrangements, while maintaining composure in the formal setting. The garden of Count Blend's estate hosted the tea party, with guests mingling and conversing among tables in a relaxed outdoor setting. Alto confirmed that the party was taking place in the garden, while Jaluk silently noted that he had ignored the invitation details, choosing to focus on the event itself. Jaluk and Alto arrive at a formal outdoor tea party standing among other nobles, and surveying the elegant setting. They are warmly greeted by a high-ranking host, who expresses pleasure at their presence and acknowledges their punctuality. The host instructs them to greet the other guests, and both Jaluk and Alto prepare themselves for formal introductions. They meet a seated noble, exchanging polite gestures while observing the surrounding attendees and noting familiar faces. Leonard joins the gathering, revealing that Jaluk's magical drink device has attracted attention, blending social interaction with shared interests. Jaluk senses someone staring at him, while Leonard continues to speak energetically, highlighting his cheerful personality. The three seated nobles react nervously as Jaluk and Alto turn toward them, their presence commanding attention. Jaluk and Alto recognize the men as members of the Baron family, recalling previous encounters at Leonard's party. The Baron's daughters appear behind their fathers, confirming the family connection and surprising Jaluk and Alto. The fathers bow deeply, formally introducing themselves as Kuroa, Leopold, and Gabina, leaving Jaluk and Alto slightly taken aback. The three Baron fathers bow deeply, apologizing for their daughter's previous rude behavior toward Jaluk. Jaluk calmly accepts the apology, explaining that he had already forgotten about the incident and sees no issue. He watches the fathers leave, surprised by how dramatically they reacted and thinking it was unnecessary to be so worked up. Leonard joins Jaluk, discussing the political influence and wealth of the Baron family, warning him about potential social complications. Jaluk reflects thoughtfully, agreeing that Leonard is right, considering the implications of the Baron's status on future interactions. The host announces the main attraction, freshly brewed coffee, signaling a shift from formalities to leisure. Jaluk observes the magical tools provided by his family, which allow guests to grind beans and prepare coffee easily. The Baron fathers examine the beans in the coffee mill, curious about the process and the aroma. Leonard excitedly inspects the coffee mill, impressed by the craftsmanship and Jaluk's innovation. Jaluk quietly instructs Leonard not to disassemble the device, maintaining control over his invention while sharing the experience. The host announces that a professional CA master, Rondell, will demonstrate the coffee-making process using Jaluk's magical tools. Rondell begins grinding the coffee beans, showing guests the proper use of the magical coffee mill. The Baron fathers, along with Jaluk and Leonard, watch in amazement as the process efficiently grinds the beans. Leonard comments on how the magical tools accelerate the coffee-making process, making it effortless compared to manual grinding. Servants deliver the freshly brewed coffee to the guests, and everyone admires the smooth, perfect pour into cups, completing the demonstration. The guests are invited to taste the freshly brewed coffee, with Jaluk and Leonard politely, allowing others to go first. The Baron fathers and Leonard sample the coffee, remarking on its unusual balance of bitterness, sweetness, and tang. Leonard adds milk to his cup, making the coffee easier to drink, and Jaluk watches with interest. Other nobles taste the coffee, some preferring it plain, others adding milk or sugar, enjoying the fragrant drink. For guests who find the coffee too strong, alternate options are offered, ensuring everyone enjoys their experience. Guests ask for refills while the host assures them that coffee and snacks are plentiful, and servants are available anytime. Jaluk, Leonard, and all two enjoy their coffee together, observing other nobles, enjoying the relaxing atmosphere of the tea party. The host approaches Jaluk to discuss matters about the baristas and the preparation process for future events. Jaluk calls Rondell over to assist, and the CFA master responds promptly, ready to demonstrate and share insights. The host asks Jaluk to sit and consider the future of coffee culture, starting a thoughtful discussion about its direction. The host asks Jaluk to confirm if Rondell shares the goal of spreading coffee culture to many people. Seeking assurance, Leonard confirms, expressing hope that coffee will gain popularity in the royal capital. The host smiles confidently, acknowledging that Jaluk's magical coffee mill will help coffee become widely appreciated. He points out that, aside from Rondell, few have the skills to brew quality coffee, highlighting the importance of expertise. The host declares the intention to train specialists, ensuring the future expansion of coffee culture, and Jaluk listens attentively. Jaluk reminds Rondell that without trained baristas, coffee culture could vanish quickly, stressing the importance of preserving knowledge. He explains that passing on skills is necessary to ensure coffee doesn't remain just a passing fad, revealing his long-term vision. Rondell feels guilty for his limited experience, but is motivated to contribute, understanding the significance of the task. Jaluk agrees to send servants to Rondell's store to learn everything about coffee from the ground up. The host encourages using both Rondell and House Ruland's servants to fully support training, ensuring the coffee culture's growth in the future. Jaluk clarifies that they should first confirm whether Rondell truly wants to expand his staff before making decisions. The host asks Rondell about his intentions, and he expresses humility, emphasizing he wishes to maintain the shop as it currently operates. Rondell explains that part of the appeal is the calm, tranquil atmosphere that many customers enjoy, which he doesn't want to disrupt. Jaluk observes Rondell's cafe, noting the peaceful, well-furnished space, dedicated to serving coffee carefully and with attention to detail. Rondell reflects on the importance of preserving this serene environment, ensuring customers experience the quality and calmness that makes his cafe unique. Jaluk clarifies his position, emphasizing that they should ensure Rondell genuinely wants to expand his staff before proceeding. The host asks Rondell about his intentions, and he humbly expresses that he wishes to maintain his cafe as it currently operates. Jaluk proposes a compromise, bringing Rondell and his team periodically to instruct the staff, while compensating them fairly. The host agrees, suggesting that weekly meetings would be sufficient to implement this plan effectively. The three men reach an agreement, finalizing a plan to preserve coffee culture while respecting Rondell's wishes, ending the discussion positively. The host suggests calling the tea party to a close, noting how quickly time has passed while the guests enjoyed themselves. Guests and Jaluk approach the carriages to depart, while several nobles request a moment to speak with him privately. They ask Jaluk if he could also sell coffee mills, as they want to share the tools with friends and family. The Baron fathers explain their intentions, each planning to use the mills for birthdays or to introduce them to close acquaintances. Jaluk agrees, understanding it as a gesture of goodwill from the Ruland family, and expresses his surprise and gratitude at the request. Jaluk decides to offer coffee mills as a gesture of reconciliation, prompting Blen's surprise at his independent decision. He explains that giving meals will strengthen social ties more meaningful than simply providing appliances, like stoves or refrigerators. Alto, frustrated by the day's events, refuses to cooperate further, asserting he won't take part in half-hearted plans. Returning home, Jaluk closes the door behind him, reflecting on the day and the stress of social obligations. He begins cleaning and organizing his room, thinking about what to do next to continue his responsibilities and plans. Jaluk notices a premium concert ticket he had forgotten about, and the attendant asks for a song in exchange if he wishes to use it. After a moment of thought, Jaluk decides to visit the opera house, embracing a quieter, cultural activity for himself, following the day's stressful events. Jaluk Rulin arrived at the grand concert hall, clutching a ticket in his hand. The building's ornate fa fade reflected the importance of the performance he was about to witness. Inside, the hall was crowded with nobles and townspeople. He noticed a band listed for today. Realizing it was Catalina's group, the crowd buzzed with anticipation as the performance neared. At the ticket counter, attendants apologized, explaining that most tickets were sold out. Jaluk mentioned he had an invitation, but worried it might not be enough. A staff member escorted him, opening a reserved seat. Jaluk observed the advantages of connections and wealth quietly. He was led to a lavish seat at the center of the hall. From there, Jaluk could enjoy the concert fully, immersed in the music and the elegant surroundings. Jaluk Rulin settled into the luxurious seat, noting the elevated view and extra comfort. A staff member offered a drink, and he accepted water as the performance was about to begin. The curtains drew back, revealing the stage. Jaluk watched as the musicians took their positions, the hall filled with quiet anticipation. He noticed the usual performer was absent, but the orchestra proceeded efficiently. Jaluk appreciated the dedication of the musicians and the effort they put into every detail. The performance began, and the music resonated through the hall. Jaluk followed the players carefully, admiring the skill of each violinist. At the final note, applause erupted. Jaluk observed the crowd's reaction and realized the performers had truly captivated everyone, becoming the highlight of the evening. The orchestra stood in formation, bows poised, as the audience's applause filled the hall. The musicians prepared to begin under the conductor's guidance. The conductor lifted his baton, signaling the start. Jaluk observed the precision and intensity of each performer as they followed the commands perfectly. Strings, woodwinds, and brass blended in harmony, filling the hall with rich, resonant sound. Jaluk's attention was drawn to every subtle movement of the musicians. Percussion added rhythm and depth, accentuating the music's crescendos. Each beat resonated through the hall, enhancing the atmosphere. The performance reached its finale, and the crowd erupted in applause. Jaluk smiled, appreciating the skill and dedication that brought the symphony to life. The musicians bowed as the audience applauded. Jaluk watched the performers with interest, noting their focus and elegance. From his seat, he observed the conductor addressing the audience. The hall fell silent, anticipation filling the air. The conductor announced the final piece, a new composition by Catalina. The audience reacted with excitement, eager to hear the premiere. Applause and murmurs spread through the hall as the orchestra prepared. Jaluk studied the arrangement and noted subtle changes in the performer's setup. The performance began, with strings and piano blending in harmony. Jaluk realized the music was richer than before, a testament to Catalina's skill and innovation. The orchestra performed a piece that triggered a memory for Jaluk. He recognized the melody as a classical song from his previous life. He recalled humming the tune once, and Catalina had transcribed it into sheet music. The memory made him smile quietly. As Catalina played the violin on stage, Jaluk admired the harmony and precision of the ensemble. Every note reflected her skill and attention to detail. Catalina's expression showed her concentration and passion, her movements fluid and deliberate, bringing the composition to life. Jaluk watched intently, deeply impressed by the music. He could feel the emotions and beauty of the piece resonate throughout the hall. The orchestra finished their performance on stage, and the audience applauded warmly. Jaluk Rulin watched the musicians as they lined up to receive the crowd's appreciation. He considered recording the performance in the miniature sound garden, noting the precision and harmony of the ensemble. The musicians smiled and acknowledged each other's effort. A few days later, Jaluk visited the rehearsal hall. The musicians continued practicing diligently, preparing for the next performance. Catalina wiped her brow, satisfied with the day's work. The music had flowed smoothly, and everyone felt accomplished. Laura and others praised Catalina for her dedication. Jaluk admired how she could compose non-stop while performing flawlessly on her violin. Catalina reflected on her recent performance, acknowledging her drive to push herself and improve. Jaluk observed her dedication and the respect she earned from her peers. She recognized her own limitations and the need to develop both her technical skills and expressive abilities to succeed as a performer. Determined, Catalina committed herself to practicing harder as both a composer and musician, understanding that teamwork had contributed to her compositions. Her curiosity sparked a new question about her creative process, wondering about decisions behind her recent works. Her companions, including Jaluk, encouraged discussion about her creative choices, exploring why pieces were released at particular times, and how she balanced composition and performance. Catalina explained her decision to release a new piece early, believing the audience's engagement made it the right moment. Her companions, including Jaluk, found it curious but accepted her reasoning. She reflected on her talent and acknowledged that without continuous learning and skill, it would be difficult to succeed solely as a performer. Determined, Catalina committed to working harder both as a composer and a musician, understanding that collaboration had been key to her past compositions. Her curiosity sparked questions about her creative process and decisions regarding the timing of releases. Despite their curiosity, her peers agreed to set aside personal questions and focused on celebrating the end of practice, appreciating the day's accomplishments. Catalina and her companions discussed a recent performance, reflecting on audience engagement and her decision to release a piece earlier than expected. She acknowledged her need for continuous improvement, recognizing that technical skill and expressiveness were crucial to succeed as a performer. Determined, Catalina committed to practicing harder as both a composer and musician, aware that past teamwork had supported her achievements. Curiosity arose about her creative decisions, prompting reflection on timing and strategy for releasing new pieces. Her companions mentioned a private client request, noting it required additional work but offered generous compensation. The client's request involved performing a few songs in a rented hall, with high expectations and careful attention, highlighting the challenges and rewards of their profession. Jaluk arrived at the music hall, surprising the people there as they noticed his unexpected appearance. After being recognized, he revealed that he had come for personal reasons and wanted to record a song he greatly enjoyed using the special sound equipment. Hearing that explanation, the woman finally understood why he had suddenly appeared at the venue. Meanwhile, others discussed Jaluk's reputation. His wealth allowed him to support large projects, and the musician credited him as the person who inspired and guided the music. When asked about their connection, both confirmed they had met several times before, leaving the others surprised by their familiarity. Jaluk explained that he had only come to observe a request being handled by people he knew. His presence, however, quickly attracted attention and raised suspicion among those at the venue. The woman questioned why he had not informed her beforehand. Seeing Laura present, she realized he was preparing a recording that required a violinist. Jaluk revealed that he had deliberately kept silent. In his view, involving acquaintances too closely could interfere with making decisions based purely on work. After listening to her performance, he calmly evaluated it. The emotional style did not match the atmosphere he wanted for the song. For that reason, Laura was selected instead. Her gentle and elegant playing suited the recording better, leaving the other woman quietly stunned. Jaluk's decision left both women completely stunned. The unexpected comparison caught them off guard, and neither knew how to respond at first, trying to maintain her composure. The rejected violinist quickly withdrew and claimed she had only caused trouble. Despite her words, frustration was clearly written across her face. As she hurried away, Jaluk noticed the sudden movement and looked toward the corridor, puzzled by her abrupt departure. Once out of sight, the woman finally released the irritation she had been holding back. The rejection had affected her far more than she wanted to admit. Meanwhile, the musicians discussed the situation calmly. Having faced many refusals themselves, they agreed that Jaluk's judgment was reasonable and based solely on what suited the song best. After leaving the hall, the violinist reflected on her reaction. The rejection bothered her more than expected, and she struggled to understand why it had affected her so deeply. Walking alone through the quiet streets at night, she questioned her feelings. Part of her knew the decision had been reasonable, yet the frustration remained. With each step, she admitted that nobody had intended to insult her. The selection process had simply followed practical needs rather than personal feelings. Eventually, she reached a conclusion. Blaming Jaluk was easier than dwelling on her embarrassment, so she decided to forget the matter and enjoy the evening by herself. The following day arrived, but the memory still lingered in her mind, leaving her with a strangely determined expression. The next morning, Catalina felt embarrassed when she remembered her behavior from the previous day. While blaming Jaluk in her thoughts, she suddenly spotted Laura nearby. Trying to act normal, she greeted Laura with forced confidence. The awkwardness quickly overwhelmed her, causing an unusually dramatic reaction. Laura noticed something was wrong and checked on her. Catalina immediately regained her composure and returned the greeting as calmly as possible. Their conversation turned to the previous day's incident. Catalina apologized for her surprise, and Laura accepted the explanation without any resentment. Just as the tension faded, Laura asked about Catalina's connection with Jilk. The unexpected question left her completely caught off guard. Laura explained that her connection with Jilk was limited to occasional conversations and music-related work. Hearing that answer, Catalina relaxed slightly. The explanation matched what she had observed and cleared away some of her earlier assumptions. Curiosity soon returned. Wanting confirmation, Catalina carefully asked whether there was any deeper commitment between Laura and Jilk. Laura hesitated before admitting that she held a favorable opinion of him. Her sincere expression immediately caught Catalina's attention and left her momentarily speechless. As Laura's qualities came to mind, Catalina reflected on her talent, background, and character, then reluctantly concluded that she seemed far beyond Jilk's level. Catalina struggled to understand Laura's feelings. The more she listened, the more puzzled she became about why Jilk had become the subject of such admiration. Soon, Laura began recalling Jilk's praise for her music. His sincere recognition of her talent left a strong impression and made her visibly happy. That memory only deepened Laura's affection. Receiving such honest appreciation from someone she respected had greatly influenced her feelings. As the conversation continued, Catalina considered Jilk's status and circumstances. Realizing he was still unmarried, Laura quietly wondered whether a future with him was possible. Encouraged by that possibility, Laura reached a firm decision. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that she might have a chance. Filled with new determination, Laura announced that she would invite Jilk to share a meal during their next assignment. The declaration left Catalina speechless. She could hardly believe that Laura had already decided to take such a direct step toward Jilk. Recovering from the shock, Catalina listed Jilk's strengths. His appearance, status, wealth, and understanding of music made him an ideal partner in the eyes of many performers. Even so, she quickly pointed out his flaws. From her perspective, Jilk focused too much on himself and seemed poorly suited for a committed relationship. Laura remained unconvinced. Rather than seeing faults, she viewed his unusual habits and dedication as part of the qualities that made him appealing. Laura's admiration for Jilk only grew stronger, no matter how many flaws Catalina mentioned. Patiently, Laura explained that imperfections were natural. To her, Jilk's shortcomings did not outweigh the qualities she respected and appreciated. Catalina tried once more to discourage her. Concerned about Jilk's personality and lifestyle, she warned that getting too involved with him might lead to disappointment. Those warnings produced an unexpected result. Laura began wondering whether Catalina's repeated objections came from personal feelings rather than simple concern. Acting on that suspicion, Laura asked for support in pursuing Jilk. The suggestion immediately shocked Catalina, whose reaction strongly denied the misunderstanding. Realizing she had misunderstood Catalina's intentions, Laura quickly changed her attitude. However, her interest in Jilk only grew stronger, and she eagerly sought more information about him. Unable to resist Laura's determination, Catalina gave in. Seeing how serious she was, Catalina decided to share everything she knew about Jilk elsewhere. Jilk arrived at a venue to complete another recording session. After confirming his reservation, he prepared to continue the work he had started earlier. Unlike the previous visit, he planned to properly preserve and document his musical ideas. Yet his thoughts soon drifted elsewhere. Waiting at home was a carefully prepared flounder dish, and the anticipation of enjoying it filled him with excitement. Laura arrived early and waited excitedly for Jilk. Determined to get closer to him, she saw this opportunity as an important step toward her goal. When Jilk finally appeared, he casually noted her presence. Meanwhile, Laura struggled to hide her nervousness and carefully avoided revealing her true intentions. Mistaking her eagerness for simple courtesy, Jilk apologized for keeping her waiting. As they spoke, Laura focused on making a good impression. Jilk, however, interpreted her behavior as professional consideration toward a valued client. Preparations soon began inside the hall. While Jilk intended to arrange the chairs himself, Laura immediately offered assistance, eager to spend more time by his side. While helping with preparations, Jilk arranged the chairs using magic. Laura watched in amazement as the task was completed far faster than ordinary manual work. Curious about the display, she asked how he could use magic. Jilk explained that his profession as a magic tool artisan required practical knowledge and experience with magical techniques. From there, he gave a detailed explanation about mana, magical infusion, and the crafting process. Laura listened attentively and found every part of the discussion fascinating. Meanwhile, Jilk assumed she was only being polite because he was an important client. Soon, the preparations were finished. As the musicians gathered and took their seats, Jilk turned his attention toward the recording session. The orchestra listened to the finished recording and was pleased with the result. Jilk confirmed that the sound quality was excellent and that the project had been completed successfully. After reviewing the recording, Laura approached Jilk and asked whether he was satisfied. With the work finished, Jilk paid the musicians and dismissed the group. Relief spread through the hall because the recording had been completed without needing any retakes. One musician requested permission to continue using the reserved venue. Since time remained on the booking, Jilk agreed and left the arrangements to the staff. Before leaving, Jilk exchanged a few polite words with the group. Laura quietly watched him depart, wishing their interaction had lasted longer. As Jilk prepared to leave, Laura hurried after him and stopped him. Gathering her courage, she invited him to share a meal now that the recording project was finished. The unexpected request caught Jilk off guard. Laura stood nervously before him, waiting for his response while trying to remain calm. Jilk considered the invitation carefully. Although he preferred returning home to enjoy the food he had prepared, he also recognized Laura's help throughout the project and the value of maintaining their connection. After a brief pause, he agreed to join her. Laura was visibly surprised by his acceptance and had not expected such an easy answer. Excitement quickly turned into nervousness, realizing they would be dining together. After Jilk agreed to join her, Laura nervously revealed she wanted the meal to be only between them. A noblewoman hesitated after receiving an invitation to dine together. Learning that only the two of them would attend eased her concerns. Excitement quickly replaced her uncertainty. After thanking him, she rushed off to prepare while he waited outside. Soon, they arrived at a restaurant together. Their appearance drew attention, as seeing him accompanied by someone was uncommon. Inside, she took a seat while he handled the arrangements. The staff welcomed them and prepared a private space. Rather than a social gathering, the dinner was part of his work. With everything ready, he led her to the reserved room to begin the evening. Seated across from each other, the young woman expected a luxurious venue. Instead, she found herself surprised by his preference for a simple restaurant. Calmly, he explained that quality mattered more than appearance. Good food and a pleasant atmosphere were enough to earn his approval. While studying the menu, she looked for suitable choices. At the same time, he considered which drinks would best complement the meal. After some thought, he recommended the restaurant's steamed clams. The suggestion immediately caught her interest. Encouraged by his recommendation, she eagerly added the dish to their order. A variety of dishes soon filled the table, and the young woman eagerly admired the meal before them. After expressing her appreciation, she joined him in a toast. Their dinner officially began as the glasses met. Excitement grew with every bite. While she enjoyed the food with visible delight, he quietly sampled each dish beside her. Throughout the evening, they shared the meal in a relaxed atmosphere. The restaurant's specialties proved worthy of their reputation. Pleased by the flavors, she asked for another drink and continued eating enthusiastically. Noticing her growing appetite, he watched with mild curiosity as the dinner carried on. Seeing her slow down, he encouraged her to focus on the restaurant's signature dish and enjoy it without concern. Curiosity arose when she noticed an unfamiliar ingredient. He explained that it was sea urchin, a rare delicacy that had recently become popular. After tasting it, her uncertainty quickly disappeared. The rich flavor blended perfectly with the cheese, leaving her delighted. Time passed as they continued their meal. By the time they stepped outside, she was completely full and ready to return home. Just as he started to leave, she suddenly reached out and stopped him, unwilling to let the evening end so quickly. After stopping him, she gathered her courage and looked at him with unusual determination. Instead of saying goodbye, she asked him to visit one more place together. Her request caught him completely off guard. Concerned about the late hour, he tried to end the evening. Even so, she admitted that she wanted to know more about him beyond their work-related connection. A brief silence followed. Then, he gently pulled his hand away, making his answer clear. Without changing his decision, he explained that other matters required his attention. Left standing under the night sky, she could only watch as he prepared to leave. Trying to change the subject, he enthusiastically began talking about an aged flounder waiting at home. His unexpected answer left her speechless. Comparing herself to a fish only deepened her frustration. Rather than noticing her mood, he continued explaining the appeal of aged seafood with complete confidence. Meanwhile, she listened to his detailed lecture in growing disbelief. The discussion drifted further away from what she truly wanted to hear. Finally reaching her limit, she turned around and stormed off. Confused by her reaction, he could only watch her leave while wondering what had gone wrong. Returning home, he immediately checked the flounder he had been aging. Seeing that it had matured properly, soon, a full spread of dishes covered the table. With everything ready, he settled in for a quiet dinner by himself. Each bite revealed a richer flavor than fresh fish could offer. The carefully aged flounder rewarded his patience. As the meal continued, he compared the different stages of aging. Every version carried its own unique taste and texture. Curiosity led him to try the kombu, cured portion last. The result exceeded his expectations and left him pleasantly surprised. The kombu, cured flounder, delivered an even deeper flavor. Its richness left a lasting impression and confirmed the success of his careful preparation. With growing satisfaction, he continued sampling the meal. Every dish complemented the aged fish and completed the experience. A drink followed shortly afterward. The combination of fine food and sake allowed him to fully relax. Despite enjoying the restaurant earlier that day, he found dining with another person more exhausting than expected. Reflecting on the evening, he concluded that shared meals required restraint and consideration. After returning home, he relaxed with a drink and concluded that meals enjoyed alone were still the most satisfying. Meanwhile, the young woman sat in her room replaying the evening in her mind. Frustration and embarrassment refused to fade. A sudden noise interrupted her thoughts. Limping through the house, she went to answer the unexpected visitor. Moments later, she found herself face to face with a close companion. The emotions she had been holding back immediately burst to the surface. Unable to contain her feelings any longer, she loudly complained about her defeat. Her friend listened patiently, while commenting on the familiar state of the cluttered room. After settling down, she accepted a glass of water and slowly gathered herself. The frustration remained, but she was finally able to explain what happened. As the story unfolded, her friend learned about the dinner and the unexpected outcome. The account sounded almost unbelievable. Eventually, she confessed the source of her embarrassment. In her mind, a dry-aged flounder had somehow ranked above her. The realization reignited her emotions. Remembering how bravely she had approached him, she burst into tears and vented her disappointment once again. While venting her frustrations, she explained that his refusal felt even worse because he had chosen a flounder over her invitation. Her friend imagined how the situation should have been handled. Unfortunately, his thoughts had remained focused entirely on food instead. The more she recalled the evening, the more ridiculous it seemed. Every memory led back to another enthusiastic speech about fish. Listening to the full story, her friend became convinced that the man was hopelessly oblivious. Even so, the young woman still defended him. After a long silence, she admitted that thoughts of marriage had started crossing her mind. After listening to her friend's advice, she finally admitted that the criticism was justified. Even so, the frustration lingering in her heart refused to disappear. Determined to regain her composure, she stepped outside and took a deep breath. For a brief moment, she appeared calm again. Leaning over the balcony, she directed her anger toward the flounder that had ruined her evening. Hearing the outburst, her friend rushed after her in alarm. The situation was quickly spiraling out of control. As the rant grew louder, her friend grabbed hold of her and tried to stop the chaos before the neighbors could hear the entire story. Unable to calm down, the young woman continued venting her frustration at full volume, unaware that her complaints could be heard beyond her room. Hearing the commotion through the wall, he quietly wondered what was causing the disturbance.